The goddess turned to the hero with a request to save this dying world, and her voice sounded unusually calm in the silence. And the hero gave him everything he had, realizing that such a decision would forever change his future fate and destroy the usual peace. The arrow-wounded boy looked around, thinking that the battle was over, and quietly asked the girl about the whereabouts of his remaining comrades. But the hero stopped abruptly and coughed up blood, feeling how his body gradually stopped obeying his exhausted commands. His eyes rolled back, his body didn't obey him, and the boy realized that his strength was finally leaving his weakened body. The sky was an inappropriately cloying pink for the situation, as if mocking the hero's suffering at the last moment. Falling to the ground, the hero sighed in pain and fatigue, feeling the world around him slowly dissolve. His eyes began to close, and the boy felt that sleep was becoming the only possible salvation from the torment, and he simply asked to let him sleep a little, hoping that a short rest would restore at least some of his lost strength. In total, the guy had 55 regressions, incarnations, and reincarnations, each leaving a deep mark on his memory. And again, it all ended with the hero dying like a dog, unable to complete the next task assigned to him. The girl began to approach the guy, noting that this time he held out for quite a long time, surprising her calm. The words confused the protagonist, because he held out for quite a long time sounded strange after such a painful and prolonged death. Before him stood a goddess. She was beautiful and all shining, as if she herself was glowing with a soft inner radiance. She wondered if perhaps this time the rebirth would finally take place, since such an event had not happened for a long time. Believe it or not, this emotionless being is a goddess who has been watching over the hero for countless cycles. The very creature that kidnapped the hero, depriving him of his usual life and peaceful existence forever. It was so long ago that the hero no longer remembers, but it was then that the goddess first kidnapped him without explanation. And then, out of the blue, she told the hero to find Erfurt and save the world by throwing him into another dimension. Over 55 cycles of regressions, incarnations, and reincarnations, the hero suffered so much that he forgot the means of his own death. In the end, he never found a single clue about what this mysterious and incomprehensible Erfurt was. The hero yelled at the goddess, declaring that he could not take it anymore, and demanded that she search for the fort on her own, without the participation of her exhausted body. But the goddess declared that she could not do this, because such an action would lead to the inevitable destruction of the world. And when the guy said he would go crazy, the girl replied that the restoration of his mind and body was functioning normally. While she is right, no matter how terrible a hero's death was, his mind and body were always fully restored here. But the painful memories of the pain the hero experienced with each death came back to him again and again. The goddess continued that they should begin preparing for the next cycle because another regression was coming up. The protagonist yelled, "Fuck her," but the goddess replied that her body was biologically female, so the request was impossible. But suddenly the goddess said that it was a joke, and her expression for a moment became almost human and soft. The hero has done everything he could in the role assigned to him, and can now finally rest in peace after his torment. The hero has more than earned the right to return to his world, because he has gone through incredible trials and suffering. The guy was shocked because everything ended unexpectedly, despite the fact that he had failed to save the world 55 times. The goddess smiled, saying that in this task the process was more important than the result, so the hero had nothing more to worry about. The main character shouted, "No, wait, stop," because he still had a lot of questions that required immediate explanation. As he moved away, he shouted that the goddess would simply say whatever she wanted and throw him out, calling her crazy. The goddess said in conclusion that she would expect great achievements from the hero there too, as if she sincerely believed in him. A bright light illuminated the darkness, and the hero felt his consciousness rapidly disappearing somewhere far and deep. A scream was heard, "Kanhan bit, Mom is leaving for work," and the guy abruptly returned to the reality of his world. The guy stood up, wheezing, because his stomach was bursting with pain, and his body barely obeyed his weak movements. 18 months have passed since the hero returned to the real world, trying to get used to ordinary life. He went through so many regressions, incarnations and reincarnations that he almost forgot his real life. But his memory returned. It's amazing how quickly Mom left for work, as if nothing unusual was happening around the exhausted hero. Damn. Just think, the goddess kidnapped the hero the day before the summoning, completely changing his future destiny. And so 18 months flew by, and yesterday the hero was demobilized, finally receiving his long-awaited freedom. If you count how many times the hero had to serve in the army during regressions, incarnations, and reincarnations, you get an incredible number. This was his 6th business trip, of course, because the goddess did not give him the slightest rest or peace. Adjusting to modern life is damn hard, and it's all the fault of that damn goddess who ruined his destiny. The hero worked like crazy to get this internship, but how long would his strength last in this state? The guy received messages. Today we're having a blast again, yes, and he sighed heavily from the accumulated fatigue. The main character replied that he was crazy, his Hyung was already old and tired, so such a proposal sounded completely ridiculous. But they answered him that this was all a hero could do, calling him a coward, again provoking him with words. In the end, the hero was grateful to his friend for looking after him when, having returned to the real world, he was again taken into the army. And then the guy was told that the drink thing was a joke and was offered a gift prepared especially for demobilization. In general, the hero even looked forward to a gift from this guy because such moments reminded him of normal life. A guy appeared at the ice cream table. It was Chu Yan Woo, 4 months older than the hero, but 5 years younger. They were walking around like that yesterday, and Hyun asked if Yan Woo was okay, since he claimed that he was still quite young. And after the question about the gift, the friend said that he would be offended if the hero was interested only in the gift and not in the meeting. Then the protagonist turned around, saying that it was fun, and said goodbye, promising to see each other later in a calmer atmosphere. Then the guy finally handed over the card, reminding the hero of the story about a game called The Record Project. It was a level 2 RPI membership card that allowed you to get sync-enabled hardware to play from home. The guy said that this was his gift, so the hero should accept it calmly, because such things are given from the heart. The card cost about 500,000, but for Hyun it was not a pity, because he sincerely wanted to support the hero. Hyun asked if the hero needed a personal bodyguard, and his friend replied that there were plenty of free rooms, offering to move in if desired. But then the main character said that he found a job in 2017 because his family was now in a difficult financial situation. The guy blushed, asking if the main thing for the hero was really to earn money, because that sounded too mundane. Hyun replied that it would be better to find another part-time job than to waste time on games that don't provide a stable income. And after Chu Yeon-woo mocked him for not having any romance, the main character started to pull his hair out, saying that romance was useless. A friend said that it depends on how you play RPI, because you can make a fortune in this game if you act wisely and confidently. They were talking about hundreds of millions, and the friend assured the hero seriously, showing that the game's possibilities were truly enormous. Hearing this, the protagonist calmed down, realizing that such sums could change his life and give him a chance for stability. And he sat down, asking for forgiveness for his rudeness, turning to Sergeant Chu Yeon-woo and humbly asking for an explanation. The guy asked if the hero knew that RPG was developed by Team Zero, as this is an important part of understanding the game. Chu Yeon-woo began explaining walkthroughs that help with clearing, and such services can be offered at almost any price. Even leading corporations invest huge amounts of money in creating professional teams, but individuals also have a chance. And after Hyun's answer to try the game, his friend beamed because such a decision gave the opportunity to start something new. He said that since the hero had taken such a big step, then why not? Because a chance to try is always worth taking advantage of. Wiping his mouth with his hands, Chu Yeon-woo suggested that they go right now, since delay would only delay the beginning of a new journey. The weather outside was clear and fine, creating a feeling of calm and anticipation before the important step. Hyun was outraged by the crowd, and his friend said that this was nothing compared to the crowds in Western and European countries. The guy grabbed the main character by the collar, saying that they needed to go here, because time should not be wasted. First of all, you need to buy a guidebook for beginners, because without it, the game will be too difficult and incomprehensible. A friend said that the hero has no idea how unfriendly RPI is to newcomers, demanding preparation and knowledge. A friend explained that the player behind the nickname was an adventurer, but he wrote a guide specifically for beginners, and without him, the game would be unbearable. Hyun replied that he understood, suggesting that he at least look at the contents of the book before purchasing it to ensure its usefulness. The main character froze, and the guy asked in surprise what was wrong because the hero's reaction looked too serious. Hyun heard the voice of the goddess saying that she expected great achievements from the hero, reminding him of the past and the unfinished path. The book said to find Erfort, and the hero realized that the connection between the worlds remains, despite returning home. For 2 years the hero had been tormented by one question, and the goddess's words that she would wait did not give him any peace. He clutched the book tightly, realizing that the goddess had no intention of letting the hero go from the very beginning, leaving the path unfinished. Ju Yeon-woo said that the character is too serious, asking if he is afraid that the game will be too difficult. Hyun sighed, saying that it wasn't that, because he had a much more important question that required an immediate answer. And he asked if his friend knew anything about the Zero team, because such information could be key. The friend replied that the current representative of Team Zero handles external affairs alone, and that she is Michael Welton's youngest daughter. Hyun thought about it, finding it suspicious, because the connection with that goddess could be much deeper than it seemed. But the hero didn't understand why the game was connected to this, because it seemed too strange. Suddenly, sadness was reflected in the protagonist's eyes because the memories of the past world still did not leave him. After all, the world the hero was sent to was not just a game, but a real reality, full of pain and suffering. The disgust the hero felt when he killed for the first time remained in his memory forever, not allowing him to forget the experience. And that terrifying feeling when the hero died for the first time still surfaced in his consciousness, destroying his inner peace. And the despair of having to live that life over and over again still haunted the hero, tormenting his mind. The hero wondered whether it was right to return to a place where hell might await him again, since the memory of the past was still alive. Hyun pointed to the card and asked if it was possible to purchase equipment through it, specifying the estimated delivery time. Chu Yan-woo said it would take about 2 hours since delivery was instant, asked for a phone, and installed the necessary applications. He offered to buy a new book, since the old one was wrinkled, and the hero agreed, understanding the importance of a quality guide for beginners. Waving to his Hyung, Chu Yan-woo said that he would go in first, asked him to write immediately after creating an account, and promised to wait for his brother. The hero understood that rushing wouldn't speed up the arrival of the equipment, so he decided to calmly prepare for further action. When the hero approached the apartment, he saw a box at the door, as if it had been delivered in advance and was waiting for its owner. He glanced at the labels and noted that it was a game console worth 5 million won, surprised by the high price of the equipment. The hero threw all the parts onto the bed, trying to lay them out neatly so he could figure out the device without making any unnecessary mistakes. He began to study what went where, carefully checking each part to ensure the system was assembled correctly and no breakdowns occurred. The protagonist slammed the door shut, realizing that there was still some time to calmly prepare for the game before his mother arrived. He then put the bracelets on his hands, feeling a slight tingling sensation as if the system was checking his condition before launching. Hyun lay in bed, fully equipped, trying to get used to the new sensations that felt realistic. The guy was surprised because the sensations turned out to be much more real than he expected, although it was only a mannequin in front of him. The hero noted the ability to customize his appearance and tried to change the parameters, but for some reason the settings window did not appear. He decided it didn't matter and tried to reboot, wondering if the button he had selected was the correct exit option. But after pressing the button, everything around began to distort, as if the system was switching to a different mode and opening up a new world. The system declared that such a character already existed and greeted the hero, inviting him to enter a familiar space. Seagulls were screaming in the sky, creating the feeling of a living world, as if the hero really found himself on the coast in the sea wind. The sound of the sea could be heard, rolling in waves, filling the air with the salty smell and the calm atmosphere of a port town. It was the port city of Eden, familiar to the hero from past regressions, and he felt a slight thrill of returning. Hyun noted that he hadn't been here for a long time, and felt a strange feeling, as if the past was catching up with him again in this place. Suddenly, the hero's attention was drawn to his game reflection, which appeared in the display case, as if deliberately showing a familiar image. He noticed with horror that the appearance was exactly the same as the last regression, as if no time had passed at all. The hero thought that this was a silent message from the goddess, hinting at the need to continue the unfinished path. His glove was filled with blood, as if reminding him of the pain he had endured in the past world and the weight of his past trials. The goddess told the hero to start all over again, not allowing him to forget about the unfinished mission and remaining obligations. Suddenly, a notification about being added as a friend arrived, distracting the hero from his heavy thoughts and returning his attention to the system. Letting go of past experiences, the hero switched to the lazy man's window, noting that the nickname belonged to Yan Wu, a familiar comrade. Suddenly, a joyful cry was heard calling out to his brother, confirming that the connection between the worlds remained and had not disappeared completely. The blonde said indignantly that he had asked to write immediately upon entering, and his displeasure sounded especially sharp in the silence of the room. The protagonist thought, trying to understand whether it was really Yan Wu standing in front of him, because what was happening seemed strange and unexpected. The friend chuckled and asked why the hero chose such an appearance, since almost no one leaves their real appearance in the game. Hyun looked at his nickname, Black Dragon, and was surprised, wondering what kind of nickname was set by the system in advance. A friend behind him laughed, saying that the hero chose his nickname himself and was now surprised, as if he was seeing it on screen for the first time. Despite Hyun's indignation, Yan Wu laughed as he explained that the nickname was embedded in the biometrics and could no longer be changed. The boy shouted timeout, asking his brother to check his notifications first, as the system might have sent important messages in advance. The protagonist didn't understand what notifications might appear, as he was just beginning to understand the game's interface. The notification stated that the hero's game would be broadcast on Laufer's stream, and the system asked for consent. Yan Wu smiled, saying that he would take over the communication, and the hero should simply play, dividing the profits equally between them. The protagonist gritted his teeth, realizing that he had no choice since the situation was not in his favor. He snorted, asking if he would get 501 if they made 1,000, trying to clarify the terms of the agreement. The guy beamed, offering the hero to trust him at least once, since playing together could bring in a good income. Yanwu greeted the audience by introducing his Black Dragon brother, who would be acting alongside him from today on. In the chat, they started greeting the newcomer, offering to rate his nickname, which viewers found funny and unusual. Everyone laughed, saying that someone had developed a late 8th grader syndrome because the hero's level was too low. The friend whispered to his brother to remain calm, as anger would only make the teasing worse, and the goal of the teasing was to make money. The chat continued, promising to show the hero real hate, as viewers love to provoke newcomers. The system offered to check the recommended skills by scanning the player and providing the 3 most suitable options for development. Hyun thought, remembering that over the course of 55 cycles, he had learned many techniques that could be useful in the new world. He clicked on the map, thinking how convenient it would be if the techniques he learned were turned into skills within the game. The friend ran closer, surprised that the hero was already looking at the skills, and waiting with interest to see what exactly would fall to him. Suddenly, the heroes' faces were illuminated by a bright blue light, filling the space with a sense of magic and impending change. The cards began to clone themselves in the sky, creating a spectacular sight that could not have been predicted in advance. And the heroes remained below, watching what was happening, completely immersed in the unexpected and strange phenomenon. Their looks were filled with complete bewilderment, as this kind of system behavior did not correspond to normal game mechanics. Yanwu opened his mouth and drawled, asking how Hyun could do such a thing, as the situation seemed unbelievable. The protagonist replied that he did not understand why he was being asked, since he was not doing anything unusual at that moment. Hyun looked at his friend and asked what was going on, trying to understand the meaning of what was happening and the reason for the strange effects. For a while, my friend was simply silent, at a loss for words, as what he saw completely threw him off his usual understanding of the game. And then he shouted that these were hidden skills that appeared extremely rarely and were considered incredibly valuable. He said that this was a real jackpot because there were not 1 or 2 hidden skills, but many more. Yanwu babbled that these weren't just recommendations because a lot of icons appeared on the screen that he had never seen before. Looking at the cards, Hyun knew he could tell what they meant, as his experience from past cycles provided clues. And this was a good start, because such skills could become the basis for the further development of the hero. We need to use this as a springboard to become stronger and relying on new opportunities to discover the differences between the worlds, and to reveal the true intentions of the goddess, because her actions always seemed mysterious and required an explanation. To begin with, the hero decided to choose something safe, settling on fire magic as the most understandable direction. The protagonist asked Yanwu if he knew where to get quests because without them, skill development would be too slow. The friend was surprised, asking whether the hero had really decided to follow the path of magic, since this direction was considered difficult. But the chat started to get hateful, and Hyun asked what was going on, trying to figure out if magic was really considered a weak skill. A friend explained that the most important thing in the game is skill, because magic is incredibly difficult to level up compared to other skills. He said that the star icon only appears when you reach max level, but before that point, progress cannot be seen. The protagonist remembered that he remembered this very well, because learning any skill requires talent and significant effort. But of all the skills, magic was especially difficult, so it was even more important to choose the right mentor for training. The protagonist asked whether it was necessary to learn magic from someone, since it would be logical to assume that there was a teacher for such a skill. A friend explained that completing quests and earning achievements rewards a book that allows you to immediately learn the necessary skills. He said that NPCs have advanced artificial intelligence, but not enough to fully learn complex skills. Hyun thought about the skill books, noting that everything had become too simple, as if the game was hiding something important. Lying on the ground, the protagonist asked the master if he could finish for the day, as fatigue was becoming noticeable. The girl was yelling at the hero and ordering him to get up, and he thought that he had suffered much more in similar situations before. Hyun told his friend that it was time for them to go, as they were heading to the store where they could buy the items they needed. A friend said that fire magic could simply be purchased from Yolio, a regular merchant who sold spellbooks to beginners. Hyun was surprised, since Yolio was considered a fraud, and asked why he should go to him, and Yanwu said that he needed a spellbook. The hero screamed that this bastard was a real piece of shit because spellbooks and similar things had always been a scam for him. Suddenly a donation came, and Yolio donated 1,001, declaring that he would sue, and added that he was crying over what was happening. The boy beamed as he thanked Yolio for the 1,001 donation, as such support seemed unexpected and pleasant. He turned to his friend, saying that he had also earned about 501, calling him a hailing and encouraging him with words. The chat started laughing, noting how he was talking about offering to make money on hidden skills, considering the hero naive. He chuckled, saying that even though it was a small amount, it was still business, since every amount mattered in the game. Hyun exclaimed that even 1,000 won was valuable to him, and said that he would have saved 1,000 won if both had fallen into the water. A friend said that in any case they need to go to Yolio for fire magic, because without it, development will be too slow. He turned to Hyun, asking why he was hesitating and trying to figure out what exactly the hero was doing at that moment. The protagonist asked if he really needed to find a master of magic, and asked if his friend knew a suitable mentor. The photo featured Asvel, depicted in a vibrant style that immediately grabbed attention and created a sense of importance. Yan-woo whispered that the joke was good, but if the hero continued in the same spirit, people would start to react too violently. The main character confidently said that this was not a joke, because he was serious and had no intention of backing down from his words. He said he didn't know where his friend got this information from, since for players, Asvel was considered an ordinary quest character. He explained that such a character, who is involved in fraud and theft, ends up in prison, and the player will never see her again. The protagonist sighed, saying that it didn't matter since it would be easier to show the result in person, offering to go to Asvel. Viewers started writing that the joke was good, but it was starting to irritate them, asking why the hero was acting so stubbornly. After reading this, Hyun stated that they would then go to Yolio since the viewers were advising them to try that route, and everyone started writing that he was taking hints from viewers, offering 10,000 won if Yolio turned out to be a fraud. He said that he could dance a striptease as much as he wanted because such jokes did not embarrass him in the presence of an audience. And he threw words to his friend, suggesting that he follow him since the path had been chosen and it was necessary to move on without delay. Hyun explained that they were taking a shortcut because it would get them to the right place faster and avoid the crowd. A friend asked how Hyun knew these routes and was surprised because the hero insisted that he was playing for the first time, calling it intuition. They approached a store that looked familiar, and the atmosphere around it was reminiscent of past unpleasant events. The friend exclaimed that they had finally arrived, rejoicing that the journey had been short and had taken less time. There was a man named Yolio in the building who immediately noticed them and prepared to have a casual conversation with customers. The protagonist's fist immediately clenched, as meeting this man brought back unpleasant memories of the past. This caused an unpleasant feeling because the hero remembered that Yolio was involved in questionable affairs and deceiving players. The protagonist asked what the level of interaction with NPCs was, trying to understand how freely one could act. Hyun's eyes shone with anger because he remembered the past events and could not calmly look at Yolio after what he had experienced. A Yanwoo replied that there was so much freedom here that it was easier to find something that couldn't be done than to limit one's possibilities. He said that there is so much freedom that sometimes it can even block the player's progress in certain situations. The guy walked forward resolutely, preparing to deal with Yolio because past grievances did not allow him to stand calmly nearby. And the man beamed as he greeted the dear customer, trying to look friendly despite the tense atmosphere. Suddenly, a hand grabbed the seller by the bow, and he became frightened, not understanding what was happening and why it happened so abruptly. Hyun barked, asking if the man was doing the same shit, as his actions always aroused suspicion and anger. His eyes burned with anger, and he called Yolio an incorrigible piece of shit, not hiding his rage at the past memories. Yanwoo quickly ran into the store, trying to stop the situation, because everything that was happening looked too dangerous and abrupt. The host was shocked, and viewers wrote that the hero was in trouble because he really did something that no one expected to see. The man did not understand how they dared to speak like that, because he considered himself an ordinary merchant who was simply doing a job. He said they came to buy a spellbook, trying to bring the conversation back to a calmer direction and avoid conflict. And he asked to let go of his hand first, because the pain was becoming severe, and he could not continue the conversation calmly. Hyun suddenly released his hand, and the man began shaking it, trying to regain normal sensation after the intense pressure. The man said the spellbook he had just sold was his last and apologized for the lack of stock. He grinned, saying that he had nothing to offer in return, but he could recommend another shop that had the necessary things. And he said that to do this, they would have to provide one favor, hinting at an additional task that needed to be completed. The man was rummaging through his back pocket while the hero was dozing, and a thief quietly crept into the shop, creating an alarming commotion. And he took out a pendant, apparently the work of the hero's rival, the merchant Asvel, who acts secretly and confidently. He asked if the hero would help catch the thief, trying to hide his own involvement and gain the trust of his interlocutor. The protagonist was surprised because the man gave a quest based on a blatant lie that caused doubt and irritation. Asvel was the hero's true mentor in magic and benefactor, as he studied under her, but he was once set up. Behind bars, the hero heard the words of a man calling him a cur, Asvel, trying to humiliate him and break his moral state. It seemed that the hero had only learned to steal, according to the man who sought to completely destroy his reputation. In the face of bribed guards and fabricated evidence, any excuses the hero made were powerless and lacked credibility. Hyun asked if they promised to give the spellbook after completing the quest, and clarified what would happen to the thief after he was detained. The man replied that Asvel would also bear responsibility for the hero's crimes, trying to shift the blame and hide the truth. The future of the shop, according to the man, was obvious, as he was counting on profit while hiding his true intentions. The salesman narrowed his eyes and asked the customer what he would say about what was happening, trying to elicit the desired reaction from the hero. But the man didn't have time to continue, because Hyun took off, acting quickly and not giving him time to deceive. Everyone in the chat was shocked, thinking that the hero was a growing, and they were discussing whether he really went there, not believing what was happening. Reaching out for the bag, Hyun told the scammer to shut up, showing his determination and unwillingness to tolerate further deception. He pointed to the bag, reminding the man that he had spoken of theft, and demanded an explanation, not allowing him to evade. The system announced a mission to apprehend the swindler, Julio, with a reward of 500 gold pieces, motivating the hero to act decisively. Viewers began actively writing that everything worked, suggesting a reset using the soccer truck, discussing what was happening. The hero didn't sell anything to people like the man, so he told him to get lost, after which he sharply kicked him in the face. He didn't even listen to anything, because he understood the man's lie, and decided to act quickly, without wasting time. The merchant flew back, and the chat exploded, discussing the loss of gold and the hidden mechanic that the Black Dragon had spoken of. Julio was asked if he had deceived the hero, and the audience wanted to re-roll, discussing the dance, after which they told him to go away. A guard appeared at the threshold and exclaimed what was going on, trying to understand the situation and restore order in the shop. Closing his eyes, the protagonist said that it was all over, accepting the consequences and understanding the inevitability of further events. The guards tied up the seller, acting confidently, and prepared him for further interrogation, not believing his excuses. And when they took him away, the man argued that he had done nothing, but his words did not inspire confidence in the guards. But he still ended up behind bars because the evidence was against him and the system did not allow for mistakes. The protagonist watched this silently, realizing that events were developing differently than in the previous game version. As the hero thought, everything is different than it was then, and this was the difference between the game and the real parallel world. In the game, the hero would have to fight his way through corrupt guards and hand Julio over to someone reliable for punishment. The system has announced the completion of the task. A new quest will open upon entering the Asvel General Store. The reward has been received. Events unfolded as if everything had been staged, and the hero wondered whether to consider what was happening a simple coincidence. The friend whispered in surprise what was happening and asked how the hero knew all this without understanding the true reasons. The guy understood that his friend wouldn't believe the truth, so he decided to lie, hiding the real origin of his knowledge. And he replied that he loved fantasy novels because the plot was exactly like in an old work that he had read a long time ago. He really believed it, because in the army all he did was chatter about fantasy, not noticing the strangeness of what was happening. A donation notification arrived. An anonymous person donated 10,000 vox, causing surprise and joy among all viewers. The host lit up, thanked for the 10, calling his brother a beast, and was happy with the support he received during the stream. Observing this, the protagonist decided to leave everything to Yanwu and do what he does best. If they went there, a shop would appear, and the hero wondered how much this would change further events and the development of the plot. Yanwu was shocked, as he had no idea that Asvel was such an important character, and he expected a storm of discussion on the forums. Hyun thought about it, because he sent Julio to jail, and now all the other players also considered him a criminal. Because of this, most players believed that an important character was a criminal, and Asvel would be furious if she learned the truth. For the hero, Asvel was an important figure, but the girl behind the counter told him to find a job and leave, not tolerating empty talk. The girl behind the counter declared that if that was the case, the hero should move the goods and not live at someone else's expense, showing strictness. She held out a book, suggesting that he study magic, since carrying boxes all his life was an unworthy occupation. The heroine stood silently, watching what was happening, and was preparing to say something important, not hiding her own emotions. And then she said to raise her head, showing support and confidence, trying to encourage the hero in a difficult moment. She claimed that she knew perfectly well the hero's innocence, ordered him not to talk nonsense and wait, promising to punish the little rat. Having said this, she burned alive, leaving the hero in shock and creating a tragic turn of events that changes further events. Asvel was a dear, but at the same time painful memory for the hero, evoking mixed feelings. Hyun was silent for a while, considering the situation, trying to collect his thoughts and decide what the best course of action would be. After which he decided to open the door, overcoming doubts and fear, because something important awaited him ahead. He did it hesitantly and slowly, as if he was afraid to see something that could change his future destiny. And he saw a familiar silhouette behind the counter, which immediately evoked strong emotions and memories of the past in the hero. She slowly looked towards the guest, assessing his appearance and trying to understand the reason for the unexpected visit. And she was surprised, asking who he was, because she saw the hero for the first time, not understanding why he came to her. And then she asked if he came to her because he knew who she was, trying to determine his true intentions. The protagonist replied that since he was a newbie, he was seeing her for the first time, and he came to learn magic from her. She asked again if he really wanted to study magic with her, surprised by his determination and courage. And she came closer, calling him funny, asking why she should teach someone she was seeing for the first time in her life. Suddenly she leaned closer to him, peering closely into the hero's face, trying to discern hidden details. And she declared that he was the very same black dragon, finally understanding why his appearance seemed strange to her. The girl smiled, realizing what was happening, and realized that the situation was much more interesting than it had seemed at first. Hyun replied that it was true, because Julio had framed her, making her look like a thief, and now the truth had finally come out. The heroine chuckled, calling Julio a scoundrel because she knew that one day he would definitely cause serious trouble. Then she fixed her hair, thanking the hero, because thanks to him she avoided many problems. And she extended her hand for a handshake, saying that it was his actions that saved her from trouble and dangerous consequences. Having shaken her hand, the main character replied that it was okay, since he also couldn't stand this unpleasant guy. The heroes began to whisper, discussing Julio, because he had the face of a real swindler, which aroused mistrust. The girl asked if the hero was looking for the magic book, trying to understand his true goals and future intentions. But suddenly Hyun said to wait, as if he had noticed something important that required immediate attention and discussion. And he asked if she was looking for medicine, because he understood this immediately, noticing the necessary item right on the table in front of him. He found out about this because the medicine was lying on the table, and the girl was clearly hiding her anxiety and great worry. The main character said that he could help the girl, and she trembled, not expecting such an offer and support. She began to bite her lips, asking if he knew much about medicine, because the situation was extremely serious. The guy briefly stated that he knew enough, showing confidence and willingness to help in a difficult situation. She asked what the name of the disease is that causes the pupils to turn blue, dizziness, and nausea. Hyun replied that he did not know the name of the disease, since it was absent, but he understood its nature and characteristics. The girl was upset, saying that she knew it, because she had been deceived many times, playing on her hopes and fears. All these experts were the same. Treatment, money, and time were wasted due to false diagnoses for profit. She had experienced so many times how hope turned into poison, leaving only pain and disappointment in the heart. But suddenly the guy declared that potions and healing magic were not helping at all, and the patient did not even feel hungry. She held out her hands, asking if he really knew what kind of illness it was, because her hope flared up again. The protagonist calmly replied that the disease had no name, but he knew how to cure it and help the patient. The heroine began to ask for help, promising to thank the hero royally since she had no other choice. Hyun smiled softly, assuring the girl that he would definitely get the medicine, because he couldn't leave her to suffer. The system announced a task, having discovered Asvel's hidden worries, and ordered her to cure the illness from which her mother suffered. The guy yelled at his friend, saying he was a noob, and asking for a simpler explanation, as the system was giving complex descriptions. Simply put, rank was the level, and class denoted rarity, determining the power and effectiveness of magic items. Even if a magic book was Tier 1, its effectiveness depended on its rarity, which greatly changed its capabilities. He didn't know that the first rank had a hero class, and even a guaranteed one, because it seemed like incredible nonsense. The protagonist thought about how the same book of magic could have different effectiveness, changing the outcome of events. This wasn't there in the other world, and he decided that the developers added it because everything here was a game. It looks like the hero will have to use the book himself to understand how cool this rare and unusual class is. Suddenly Yeonwoo's voice was heard shouting, asking where he should go as the situation was becoming chaotic. But before he could say anything, Hyun grabbed his heart with his hand, feeling a strange feeling that made him wary. And the guy screamed, asking what happened, because he thought that Hyun was sick and was scared of what was happening. The main character simply replied that no, Mom had come, and his words sounded mysterious and unexpected to everyone. And he simply vanished into thin air, disappearing instantly, leaving everyone completely bewildered and raising many questions. As a result, Yeonwoo's hero was left alone and did not understand anything, although he tried to comprehend what was happening around him. The main character ran out of the room and mentally called for his mother, explaining to her the need to take care of something important. The woman looked at her son with confusion and tried to understand his strange behavior at that moment. Then she angrily attacked her son, waving her arms and screaming that the door was locked and that he had never behaved like this before. Hyun pointed to the bed and told his mother that Yeon Woo had given him something for his discharge, and he decided to try it out. She asked her son about the strange thing with the notes and tried to remember what it was called. The woman warned her son that the news constantly talked about it and asked him not to play for too long. The hero replied with a smile that he would play a little in his free time, since the internship began tomorrow. Mom turned around abruptly and said with obvious bewilderment that she was surprised by his internship because she had not expected anything like this at all. She again attacked her son in a fit of irritation and said that he had not even informed her in advance about such an important event. The woman waved her hand in an emotional outburst and asked her son how he could have acted so suddenly and without warning. The son held back his blow and told his mother that she would have stopped him if she had known in advance, and that is why it happened. She hit him in the face and said that a parent should not discuss work with a child after discharge. Hyun held his face and sighed heavily, thinking that what was happening was much more difficult than when he fought with the master. The boy blushed and told his mother that after returning to university, he had his final semester and needed a job. The woman sighed heavily and tried to comprehend her son's words, which spoke about the future and responsibility. Then she said that the company was in Sondo and he would have to get up very early every day. The woman warned her son not to skip breakfast because she knew he had skipped it today. When the protagonist said that Yeon-woo bought him a chocolate parfait, his mother asked if he considered that an excuse. Hyun glanced at his watch and thought about the stream, realizing that tomorrow was the first day of the internship and he needed to go to bed early. The man looked at his tablet and thought that no one would believe this nonsense, since the fuss was caused by a hidden quest. It was Kim Jae-ha, an employee of the small workshop's specialized RP department, who was handling important tasks. The man wondered who this mysterious character was because he had searched for him and only found the names of monsters and the nickname Black Dragon. He could smell the edgy guy just from his username and tried to figure out his character and intentions. The man looked at the information and thought that even his mother had scolded this guy for his strange behavior. He stood up resolutely and told himself that he would have to go and see everything for himself without any unnecessary doubts. Yeon-woo awkwardly told the audience that the situation was complicated and tried to explain what was happening as calmly as possible. He asked the audience to calm down first of all, because the tension was growing and was interfering with a normal discussion of what was happening. Yeon-woo said that Black Dragon Hyun served with him and was a senior officer during his service. He added that his Hyung was a devoted son and always tried to fulfill his duties as responsibly as possible. The guy didn't understand what was happening with the number of viewers because there were too many of them in a short time. He was upset that their post was leaked to RPG and asked his Hyung to pick up the phone to explain the situation. The system sent a notification from the Black Dragon, who said that tomorrow was his first day of work and he was finishing. The Black Dragon sent a new message and said that he would leave a hint in return to help in the passage. The host smirked and told the viewers that his Hyung couldn't return due to personal reasons, but he left them a gift. The Black Dragon said that the cure for the quest could be obtained from bomb slimes and asked to keep an eye on them. The main character looked at the navigator on his phone and looked for his workplace, trying not to be late. As he approached the building, he told himself that today he would give it his all and prove himself to Kang Han Bit. He walked inside with a slight smile and said that he had come for an internship and was ready to begin his duties. But inside there was chaos, as the staff discussed the lab and said that the changes had not yet been made. The man looked up and said that the intern was supposed to come in today and asked if HR was open. He snorted and said that he had already mentioned this yesterday, but no one had taken his words seriously then, as if he had been talking about something insignificant. Then his gaze turned irritated and he spat, showing his displeasure with what was happening around him. He irritably told Lee Min-ho to take care of the intern and prepare the conference room for the meeting. A tired guy approached the main character and said that his name was Lee Min-ho and he was ready to help. He spoke like a robot and asked me to put down my bag and then promised to show me the table and explain the details of the contract. He said that the protagonist can just wipe the surface for now to start with a simple task. The protagonist began to wipe the board and tried to complete the task as carefully and attentively as possible. Suddenly, a voice was heard from behind, asking why there were two interns present at the same time today. The man drinking coffee asked Hyun who he was and tried to understand the reason for his appearance in the department. The curator responded to the team leader in a calm voice, saying that the intern standing in front of him was the one he had previously reported to management about. The protagonist began to bow and said that he would work hard and learn everything during his internship. The man turned around and said that there was no need to try too hard, but simply to carry out the tasks given to him. He reported that the cleaning was finished and told the intern that he could go and continue his duties. Hyun walked out of the office and thought that he could already see the future of this company and his possible prospects. He sighed heavily and decided that he would have to learn everything on his own for the rest of his internship. He thought that such work was still better than tumbling around in that strange and dangerous world. The main character entered the game and, massaging his neck, said that he was there and the first day was too crazy. Yanwu beamed and told his Hyung that everything was fine and there was no reason to worry or be concerned. The guy didn't understand what was happening to his face, and the main character snorted, saying that it looked terrible. A friend abruptly told his Hyung that they had hit the jackpot and asked him to look at the audience, which had grown to more than 5,000. The host announced to all viewers that they had officially begun the Atspell quest and were ready to begin the journey. He added that no one has yet overcome this difficult test and been able to complete it. Hyun chuckled and said that people simply lack imagination and need to approach the problem more creatively. He firmly stated that he would show everything himself and asked the audience to watch carefully and not be distracted. As they walked, Yan Wu asked his Hyung if he was really a newcomer and asked him to explain his strange confidence. The protagonist replied that he had read a lot of fantasy and thought that in a game with such freedom, almost anything was possible. Ahead, people could be heard shouting, saying that everything that was happening was nonsense and that time needed to be killed. It seemed like the crowd had gathered after that community post, which had generated a lot of interest among players. Then new shouts were heard, announcing that the vanguard had appeared here and attracted the attention of everyone present. The hero thought that people came because of the art spell quest, since the reward gave a hero level and was very valuable. Yeonwoo whispered that this was truly avant-garde and that Hyung's discovery had spread much wider than expected. He wondered what exactly avant-garde was, since his Hyung most likely didn't know such gaming terms. Yan Wu explained that the top 10,000 players in the rankings are called the Vanguard and are distinguished from the rest. He said people are ranked based on level, skill, and story progress, determining their overall game status. Of the 300 million players, only 10,000 make it to the Vanguard, and in Korea, there are only about 500 of them. The guy asked why such people didn't learn magic, since some of them look like magicians or similar characters. Most of them skipped magic, as skill was more important, and they focused on level, noticing a participant with a bow. The protagonist recognized the golden bird's bow and remembered that the skill was quite good and was created by a high-level master. The friend went on to say that most of the avant-garde is owned by companies and receives corporate support. He said that such players receive significant corporate assistance to complete RP and difficult challenges. He added that even if a game has no property rights issues, RP still brings in money for the company. A girl approached him and said that he was the Black Dragon and asked when he would show the walkthrough of the quest. Suddenly an argument started where one person said that everything was nonsense, and the other asked to believe at least once. They started a fight, remembering that last time one of them believed the swindler and was completely robbed down to his underwear. Hyun suggested going to the sea first to sort out the situation and begin preparations for creating a cure. He said that to create the medicine you need a fishing rod, and without it, it is impossible to perform the necessary actions. Viewers were surprised why crafting content suddenly appeared, given that the hint was about explosive slime. Hyun chuckled softly, thinking that people were completely misunderstanding what was happening and not seeing the obvious connections. A friend asked his Hyung with confusion why they needed a fishing rod and whether the ingredients for the medicine were obtained from the sea. The protagonist just shrugged and said that, who knows, since the game often behaves unpredictably. Then the friend fell to his knees in tears and said that if everything turned out to be a lie, he would have to turn off the stream. Hyun decided to console his friend and said that he needed a fishing rod first, so he asked to borrow about 70,000 gold. Everyone was amazed by his request and said that he immediately went on to lend me so much gold, surprising everyone. A crowd of people began to appear on the street, gradually surrounding the area and observing what was happening. The heroes looked closely and noticed that there were even more people, and the crowd continued to grow with each passing minute. The protagonist said that he would soon return the gold, and his friend said that he did not understand why the Hyung was going to use the fishing rod. A conversation started in the chat where people were saying that it was Eldrock and that there was a strange feeling of unity around him. Hyun walked closer to the man and greeted him, saying that he would like to buy this fishing rod for the mission. Eldrock asked him in a calm voice if there had been any accident, trying to understand the reason for his interest. The protagonist repeated to his grandfather that he could hear him perfectly well and promised to give him 50,000 gold pieces right now. A call to the Black Dragon was heard in the chat. The hero reminded that even in the game, one must always respect one's elders. Then the old man declared that he would never agree, and firmly named the sum of 10 gold coins for him. Hyun smiled at the old man and suggested settling for 6 coins, considering it a fair and beneficial solution for both of them. This old man hasn't changed at all. His swearing reminds the hero of how they used to fish together by the river in the evenings. The man snorted and said that young people today were too greedy, but still allowed the hero to do whatever he wanted without restrictions. The protagonist joyfully shouted about the great victory and thanked the sir, feeling that fate was finally smiling on him today. A friend told Hyun that streaming suits him very well and noted how naturally the character appears in front of the audience on screen. From the moment the hero promised to show something with a fishing rod on a field of slug bombs, the audience's interest grew. Yi Yun-woo suggested trying a role-playing game, but the protagonist replied that he was completely uninterested in such entertainment. And then the presenter began to explain to the viewers that the bomb slugs are very sensitive, and if you touch them, an explosion will occur. A loud explosion was heard, and the protagonist realized how dangerous these creatures were, even when handled with care. The presenter added that even if you attack the slug bombs from afar, the reaction will still be destructive to those around them. He explained that they would still explode, leaving behind chaos, and therefore required players to exercise extreme caution. Even just crashing into them would have serious consequences, and the hero remembered this warning for the future in the game. The protagonist noted that it was easy to guess what would happen if he wasn't careful, and decided to act as carefully as possible during the stream. Spectators were outraged, saying that even when the slug bombs explode, nothing falls out, and calling the situation complete nonsense. Everyone was wondering what the main character was going to do with a fishing rod against such a useless creature, because only he knew. Hyun walked up to the artifact, found a suitable spot, and decided that this particular height would be ideal for it. He noticed that the sensitivity of the rod was slightly different from reality and began to carefully adapt to the new sensations over time. The protagonist realized that it would take time to get used to the controls and decided not to rush into the first steps. Suddenly, Hyun's friend called out to him, getting his attention, and gestured that he had noticed something strange near them. He admitted that he felt like someone was following them and asked the hero to take it seriously. The protagonist frowned, said that he knew it, and began to listen carefully to every sound around the group. He noted that the pursuers were keeping their distance and had been following them since they left the city. The protagonist realized that this was not one team, but several groups, each pursuing its own hidden goals. Hyun then asked his friend to give him the screen settings so he could better assess the situation and spot any possible pursuers behind him. And then the hero smiled at everyone, apologized to the viewers and said that they would have to wait a little for changes on the screen. He asked for 1 second, promised that they would now adjust the screen a little, and continued calmly preparing for the fight. The protagonist admitted that he had always loved fantasy, finding solace and inspiration for his own life in fictional worlds. But no one in his squad shared this passion, and the hero often felt lonely among his comrades. All he could do was kill boredom by rereading the same book until the pages were almost completely worn out by time. This continued until a new recruit arrived, changing the usual routine and atmosphere in the unit. Then the protagonist asked the recruit if he knew this novel, and carefully watched his reaction in response. And he replied that he had read it, added that one part in particular was especially good, and shared his impressions of the plot. The protagonist had read the novel countless times, but the newcomer began to point out interesting details that he hadn't noticed. The hero told the new recruit that he was really cool and thought that the guy had actually been to that world. Time passed, and the hero remembered an advertisement for a role-playing game that promised an alternative world, more real than reality itself after service. He realized at that moment that if he played this with a friend, the sense of adventure would be incredibly cool. A friend whispered that Hanbit was currently streaming only his screen, and asked the hero to take this limitation into account when making plans. The guy decided to pretend to be focused on the slimes for now, hiding his true intentions and internal suspicions from the audience. Yeon-woo exclaimed to himself that while the Black Dragon was fiddling with the settings, everyone should press the subscribe button. Hyun thought that it must be unpleasant to only watch Yeon-woo through the screen, and decided to change the situation soon. He suggested that the pursuers were probably worried that other competitors would soon catch up with them and were therefore acting cautiously as well. This tense battle of wits among those trailing behind, in the hero's opinion, cannot continue for too long. The protagonist reasoned that if this nervous confrontation dragged on, someone would definitely make a mistake and reveal themselves to them. The protagonist heard footsteps behind him, slowly turned around and tried to make out the silhouettes of those who were following them in the darkness. After all, he expected that someone would definitely snap and make a decisive move, upsetting the fragile balance between the parties to the conflict. Suddenly, the protagonist clicked on the interface's glowing wings, deciding to test the effect and bracing himself for possible changes on the stream. And in the chat they suddenly started writing that the screen had returned, wondering why it was waving and what was happening now. The protagonist gripped his fishing rod tighter, trying to maintain his balance and prepare for the next precise and accurate movement. And he made a powerful swing, hoping that the trajectory would be ideal and the rod would withstand the load without the slightest hesitation. It was not without reason that I bought this fishing rod from Old Man Eldrick, because it has special properties that help in battle. The hook here is a little special. Firstly, it is so sharp that explosive slimes don't even feel it when they touch it. and if you press this button, the mechanism inside is activated and allows you to use the hook's hidden function completely. Barbs emerge from the tip of the hook, creating additional pressure and helping to control the direction of the subsequent explosive impulse. This allows Hyun to control the explosion, keeping the situation under complete control and preventing the slimes from destroying the surroundings. As for slimes caught in the explosion, their shape changes, leaving behind unpredictable remnants of material. Suddenly, one of the slimes fell to the ground, leaving behind a trail that immediately attracted the attention of everyone watching nearby. The strangers were amazed by such an unexpected result, because no one expected such behavior from an explosive creature. And one of them shouted that they had to retreat while they had the chance, although his voice trembled with fear and tension. But his gaze lingered on the tree branches above, where new slimes began to appear, ready to fall down. Slimes fell from above, creating chaos all around, and the heroes realized that the situation was becoming much more dangerous than it had previously seemed. The heroes shouted that everyone needed to run because any delay could lead to serious consequences for the entire group. Yanwoo was amazed by such power because he didn't expect that slimes were capable of creating such destructive effects around them. Hyun just chuckled, thinking that this was how he elegantly dealt with the stream snipers who were watching what was happening. And I decided that now I could get down to business, since the preparations were complete and all the necessary conditions were fully met. The chat started discussing whether all the slimes had exploded, since the viewers hadn't noticed the remaining creatures among the rubble. What's wrong with this one? It's a different color, and the audience began to speculate, trying to understand the reason for this difference. The protagonist began to pull it up with the help of a hook, trying not to damage the material and maintain its integrity. And he threw it into the bag, believing that the materials had been obtained successfully, and now he could move on to the next stage of the task. The chat was confused as to why it didn't explode, as such behavior seemed strange, and viewers began to argue. It's definitely a misfire, because if you destroy a group of explosive slimes at once, the remaining ones can mutate into misfire slimes. The friend was amazed, because if he followed everything step by step, he would be able to complete the quest, although this surprised him. Hyun understood that it would not be easy for them to control the explosion, because the situation required precision and attention from each participant. Okay, let's head to Asvel, said the hero, believing that the path ahead would be difficult, but quite doable for the group. We almost got into trouble because the game studio and the role-playing department were working on small business projects. Employee Kim Jae-ha turned out to be more than just some newcomer, as his experience and connections were much broader than expected. He had a large corporation behind him, and the hero was irritated that such support was being given to a man with whom they were in competition. I don't understand why he would even get involved with some no-name streamer, since there is almost no benefit in it. Maybe their advanced team has dug up something, and they are using it to distract the players from important events. In any case, I need to at least complete Asvel's quest, because this will allow me to move forward and complete the task. This alone will be enough to fulfill the monthly plan, because the hero was counting on stable results and a calm report. However, Kim Jae-ha would not succeed today, as circumstances were against him and hindered his further actions. The girl grimaced and asked what he had brought her, because the contents looked extremely unpleasant and suspicious. There was a nasty liquid in the plate, and she said that he had brought her a vile mixture and called it medicine. The protagonist didn't understand whether things were really that bad, because he had hoped that the treatment would help and improve his condition. The heroine simply closed her eyes and sighed, showing that she was tired of what was happening and did not want to continue the conversation. And she said that she would pay him for Julio's treatment, asking him to leave, because she needed to be alone. Hyun noticed that it didn't seem like she was that worried, since she was reacting too emotionally to what was happening. These words angered the girl, because she considered them unfair and inappropriate in such a difficult situation, and she screamed that he knew nothing, and was indignant that he dared to talk such nonsense now. And at the moment of the scream, he shoved a spoon into her mouth, trying to force her to take the medicine without resistance. And the girl involuntarily swallowed the medicine, although the expression on her face showed strong disgust and dissatisfaction with what was happening. How disgusting, she thought, because the taste was so unpleasant that it made her want to get rid of it. They wrote in the chat that the hero had too honest a face, because viewers saw him mentally calling someone trash. The heroine was taken aback, because he had just fed it to her, and she did not expect such an act from him. She started vomiting because the medicine was too strong, and her body was trying to get rid of it. And she ran out the door for a while, trying to come to her senses and catch her breath after the unpleasant sensation. And when she returned, she started yelling about what this meant, because she demanded an explanation and was not going to tolerate such treatment. Hyun asked with a smile if what came out looked like a seed and noted that the result might look confusing. And he continued, saying that this was what was causing the illness, gradually destroying the girl's health and strength over a long period of time. The protagonist repeated again that this is exactly what he said, because the reason was what she suddenly vomited. He added that she was also ill, and admitted that he noticed this immediately by her pale face, realizing that the girl's condition had worsened earlier. Of course, she most likely suffered in silence, afraid that her mother would worry if she found out about her condition and began to worry. And she was afraid that people like Julio would use her weakness against her, turning her illness into a convenient lever of pressure. Knowing what she felt, the protagonist could not call her stupid, because he understood her fears and doubts. Hyun continued to explain, saying that what she had swallowed was the seed of a parasite that grew in the far south among the local creatures. He explained that she probably became infected by eating food brought from there, and only the slime of an explosive slime can separate the seed. That's why they needed a non-explosive slime, an explosive slime that doesn't explode, keeping only the necessary slime to cure the disease. The explosive properties are removed, leaving only mucus and toxins that cause vomiting, helping the body to get rid of the parasitic seed completely. As soon as you pull out this seed, everything will end. That is, it is not even a real disease, but a parasite inside the body. The girl muttered for him to spit it out, but her voice trembled, betraying her fear and confusion in the face of the unknown treatment. And the main character took the plate and said that, as soon as you pull out the seed, you will no longer need any medicine at all. And he advised me to go to my mother as soon as possible so that she could also receive treatment and get rid of the dangerous seed inside my stomach. Hyun thought about Atspel, noting that even though this is a world within a game, the feelings remain just as real for him always. He thought that Atspel had not changed, still the same as before, despite the time and trials that had passed. The stupid Atspel is always more concerned about the pain of others than his own, putting others above his own interests and desires. The protagonist remembered that Atspel could be harsh, but always remained by his side, supporting him in difficult moments. Atswell, the hero thought, he just wants him to be happy, regardless of the world and the circumstances around him, which are changing. The girl sat closer to the bed and quietly said, "Mom, she brought the medicine, believing that it will help you today." And she held out a spoon, asking her to just take a sip, hoping that her mother would trust her and accept the treatment without doubt. She helped her mother sit down, supporting her by the shoulders so that she would feel more confident and not be afraid of the medicine. And then she watched as the woman swallowed the medicine, trying to detect the slightest changes in her condition and breathing. When her mother vomited, huge seeds fell out, and the girl imagined with horror how they grew inside her body. Just think how these charlatans deceived her, hiding the real cause of the illness and taking advantage of her family's gullibility and weakness. The girl happily declared that they would dance for her and promised that she would never let them leave it that easily. Hyun felt warm. He thought that he hadn't seen her smile for a long time, and he felt relief and joy inside himself. The heroine had tears of happiness. She thanked him, saying, "Thank him so much, because he saved them both today." And in the chat they started writing that she was so beautiful. They did it. This is how they understand true love. The girl noted that both her mother and she are alive only thanks to him, acknowledging his merit and help with her heart. So she said that she had to reward him because otherwise her gratitude would remain just words without any action. She handed over the spellbook he was looking for, considering it a fitting reward for his efforts and kindness today. He replied thanking her and said that he should be the one thanking her, since he received more than he initially expected. Yanwoo said with a smile, "Bro, he's just the best. I can at least take a quick look at the book now." But the heroine stopped them, saying where they were going. She still had something for them. "Please wait a little." She held out the bag and said, "First of all, this is part of the reward that they earned for their perseverance and courage together." A friend noted that she seemed to be giving much more than she promised, and this pleasantly surprised and made him very happy. The system announced that a reward would be given for completing level 15 for the first time, noting the importance of achieving it in the game today. The reward payout has been increased to the maximum, 2,000 gold turns into 4,000 gold, enhancing their capabilities significantly. The level is increased by 5. Additional attribute points are added +5, and the hero feels his strength gradually grow. A quest item, Catspell's Heroic Fireball, has been added, enhancing his arsenal and opening up new tactical possibilities in combat. The hero's Fire Elemental Spellbook has been changed, and the class has been upgraded from Heroic to a unique category in the game system. The guy's laughter was heard. He said that he didn't know such a thing even existed, and was genuinely surprised by this discovery. Yanwoo couldn't believe it. The reward for the first completion was a unique grimoire. He considered it an incredibly cool achievement. And then the brother whispered, "Say something to the audience," hoping to hear a few warm words from the hero about the reward. But a commotion broke out in the chat, and a friend started yelling for everyone to calm down, trying to stop the growing chaos within the broadcast. He didn't understand what to do. The chat was moving so fast that he didn't even have time to read everything. The heroine handed over a piece of paper and said, "Here, take this too," adding another part of the reward for him. Then the protagonist asked if she still had anything to give, hoping that the surprises did not end there. The achievement is unlocked. The first savior of Asvel received an invitation from Asvel and won a tribute point, which surprised the hero. The heroine extended directions to the forge, noting the need for weapons and suggesting they stop by at the first opportunity. She noted the hero's lack of proper weapons, as his equipment had broken after catching that slime bomb. Hyun was indignant, claiming that the unpleasant rotten smell was not coming from him at all, but from the slime bombs lying nearby and gradually decomposing. She smiled and thanked him for his help today, offering to contact her if he needed any support. The protagonist answered okay with a slight smile, showing calmness and confidence in his further actions. Yeonwoo noted that there is no fixed route because the world is open and one can go anywhere freely. Everyone starts their journey in Edlin, and then everyone chooses their own direction because there is enormous freedom here. However, wandering aimlessly can lead to high-level areas that are difficult for players to escape from. The friend continued to talk about character customization in RP, hinting that the hero could have chosen differently. He suggested taking a look at it because its appearance is realistic and beautiful, which inspires respect from others. He reminded that you can choose your gender, so a character's appearance can sometimes be quite deceiving. Hyun sighed, realizing that he would have to decide for himself where to go next and where to start. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to an unexpected sound, which made the hero become wary and look around carefully. Respect for Tastes donated 50,000 won, wanting to see a more evil Aswell on air. The host yelled at him, calling him Mr. Tastemaker and thanking him for his 50,000 won donation. The protagonist exclaimed happily because he would receive 25,000 won and would be able to use it. Suddenly, donations started coming in. Asvel's parasitic plant donated 10,000 won, then Servo added 30,000. Flame Charisma donated 100,000 won, saying that fire is incredibly cool and awe-inspiring. My friend's eyes sparkled with delight because 100,000 won is a huge amount and incredible support. He noted that the number of spectators is growing wildly, with 8,000 already watching the event. The protagonist was amazed because they had completed only one quest, and the number of spectators had already reached 8,000. Hyun awkwardly thanked the viewers, quietly saying words of gratitude for the donations and attention to the stream. The protagonist understood that the total amount of donations was about 500,000 won. His share was 250. Yeonwoo struck a pose, announcing that he would now perform dance number 2, thank you for the audience. The hero completed a quest in Asvel and was surprised by what was happening because the earnings could be significant. Hyun clenched his fist, dreaming that now his mother would finally receive the debt he had long promised to repay. The goddess once showed him the flow of time in the real world in order to put pressure on him, since he was considered a missing person. Then his mother gave up everything, dedicating her life to searching for her son and hoping to bring him home. From that moment on, the hero was going to make her happy, trying to correct the past and give her peace. A friend told his brother to try using the grimoire, since all the spectators were waiting for a demonstration of a new skill. The book began to disappear in his hands, and the space around him began to glow with a red light of unusual power. He received a unique rank of Fireball, an attack spell capable of incinerating everything with a powerful explosion. The protagonist noted that the spell was not impressive, since it had previously been given to him with great difficulty. Yeonwoo beamed with happiness, because the feeling of instructions pouring straight into his head caused incredible delight. Hyun noted that he didn't feel anything like that, although he expected a strong effect from the spell. He then pretended to feel a delay, trying to hide the lack of reaction and keep up his friend's spirits. The hero was surprised, because he had definitely learned the spell, and did not understand why the sensation seemed strange. He speculated that skills from that world were manifesting here, creating an unusual connection between realities. This is how he understood what the developers meant by the existing character mentioned at the very beginning. Yeonwoo shouted for the hero to use the spell faster, as the audience was eagerly awaiting the demonstration. A friend suggested trying to cast a spell on the stone to demonstrate the power of the fireball. The hero understood the need to focus on the palm in order to properly call forth the magical energy of the spell. He took a deep breath, gathering his inner strength and preparing to precisely execute the fire spell. He then summoned a fireball, feeling the heat of magical energy gradually increase and move forward along his hand. The hero launched a fireball into the distance, watching its flight and the power of the directed spell. The flame flew forward, leaving a bright trail and demonstrating the power of fire magic in action. Ahead, a rock exploded, demonstrating the power of the spell and causing surprise among everyone watching nearby. The explosion was impressive as the fiery energy spread widely and created a vivid spectacle for the spectators. Yeonwoo admired him, calling him cool, which gave Hyun pride and self-confidence. Turning around, Hyun said that it was not bad for a first rank, and the hero felt a slight pride inside himself for the first time. Suddenly, the hero's eyes filled with surprise as he realized the changes around him and felt the presence of an unknown force next to him. and everything around began to shake. The floor trembled under the hero's feet, the walls vibrated, the air became heavy and thick. Yellow eyes appeared in the darkness. They slowly approached the hero, reflecting the predatory gleam and silent threat of the night. The protagonist began to slowly retreat, feeling fear squeeze his chest, and his steps becoming uncertain and heavy with each movement. But a huge hand appeared above him, like the shadow of a giant, hanging over the hero, promising imminent and inevitable danger for him. Hyun began to breathe heavily, his chest heaving, his breath coming in short bursts, his thoughts becoming confused, and his heart beating faster and faster. He received notification entry number 55, reporting mastery in all skills and increasing effects depending on experience. The guy's knees were shaking, and he thought about that damn goddess, blaming her for what was happening around him at that moment. The protagonist couldn't catch his breath, his lungs were burning, and his chest was constricted, as if an invisible hoop was tightening his body completely from the inside. A cold sweat broke out on him because the hero realized that the goddess was still watching him and assessing what was happening carefully. A friend approached him, worried about the hero, and quietly asked if his bro was okay and if he had lost consciousness. Hyun knew that even if he told everything, his friend still wouldn't understand the true essence of what was happening nearby. He then asked Yanwoo to show him normal rank magic, explaining that it was his first time using high rank magic, which left him very tired. The friend said with a smile that the hero really wanted to see magic, and was surprised by his persistent interest in spells. The friend sighed and said that okay, but the hero shouldn't laugh when he sees his simple magic, finally today. The guy began to summon a fireball, focusing on mana, gestures, and words, trying to show his friend a worthy spell. It was important to him now. But suddenly the fireball disappeared, leaving only a faint puff of smoke, and the hero felt awkward in front of his friend and the viewers on the stream. Hyun admitted that it was indeed weak for magic, and acknowledged his own inexperience, despite the high rank he had achieved today. A friend said he warned the hero right away that leveling up magic is tough, but he immediately received a unique rank without much preparation. The protagonist grinned and admitted that he himself didn't know it would turn out this way, surprised by the unexpected result of the rank he received. Everyone looks at the hero's unique rank, but the difference in skill should also be huge, and not just the systemic rank. Suddenly Hyun declared that his friend was misunderstanding magic, and explained that magic could not be a simple click of a ready-made effect at all. He added that spells and mana management need to be calculated step by step. The difference in rank does not completely solve everything. And while the unique rank is cool, the hero doesn't plan on using the staff yet, considering the main advantage of magic to be convenience and a personal advantage. The protagonist reiterated that the main advantage of magic is convenience, so he doesn't plan to make it his main combat skill at all. A friend asked sharply, since the hero had created the character yesterday, and was surprised that he was already talking seriously about ranks and skill. People in the chat started yawning, thanking him for the lecture, calling him a chunibei, and joking that he was getting too into the role of a streamer. Spectators discussed how the hero had a unique rank, but he wasn't going to main it, as if pride had taken over the Black Dragon's body. The protagonist screamed in his mind that they knew nothing about magic and felt irritated by the superficial comments of the audience today. He decided that viewers would not receive a single drop of information from him about other quests, deliberately concealing important details of the walkthrough. A donation notification appeared. The user donated 77,777 won, asking the magician to calm down. Suddenly, the hero said that the donation wasn't worth such sums, and felt slightly embarrassed in front of the generous viewer of the stream now. A Yanwoo responded that he simply exaggerated a little for the stream, and admitted that he dramatized the situation for the sake of viewers' interest. Hyun was surprised when he had become so greedy for money, but the miracles of the stream took the anger away from him, as if by magic. And then he wondered where they would go next, considering possible locations and quests suitable for their current team level. He said he had just one place in mind and smiled mysteriously, looking forward to a new adventure together. Looking at the building, the friend asked himself whether the hero would follow the plot and doubted his choice of further direction. And the hero understood that he himself had not been here for a long time, remembering past attempts and feeling a slight nostalgia for the old place. He replied to his friend that he would work on the plot later, but first he would acquire a couple of skills necessary for the future difficult quest challenges. And the hero slowly began to open the wooden door, smelling the old wood, anticipating a meeting with a new shooting skills teacher. They found themselves in a wooden building, where dim light fell on the walls, creating the atmosphere of a hunting lodge and the ancient history of the locals. Animal heads and skulls hung on the walls, reminding him of past hunts and slightly frightening the hero with their silent presence here. Yanwoo shuddered and thought, "Brr, what a creepy place," although he tried to maintain his inner calm in front of Hyun. The NPC archer, Hunter Rickner, turned to them and asked what was going on, deciding to check if it was a guest standing in front of him now. Hyun stated firmly that he had come to learn archery and looked the hunter straight in the eyes, demonstrating the determination of a hero. Having chopped up the meat, the man chuckled and said that, "So that means the hero really wants to master the art of shooting thoroughly." He was tall compared to the main character, and coming closer, asked if the student had sufficient willpower. Adjusting his glove, Hyun replied that he had more than enough of both willpower and skill to learn shooting. The Rickner's trial quest required the hero to score more than the required number of points in order to successfully learn archery. The guy asked again that he had 30 attempts, an apple minus 10 points. He passes if he gets 200 points. Everything is correct. A friend behind me asked, "Bro, maybe he could at least throw in a couple of points, otherwise the test will be difficult for the hero now." While drawing the arrow, the protagonist said that this would do for now and decided not to worry about the accuracy of the shot now. And he quickly took aim with his bow, straightened his stance, focused on the target, and prepared to release the bowstring with a confident forward movement. And when the arrow didn't reach its target, Yeon-woo declared that he had told the hero to pump points into dexterity in advance, even earlier. The protagonist replied that everything was fine, he had already gotten the hang of it, and the miss did not bother him at all now. The guy, with disbelief, told the hero to do as he pleased and watched skeptically as he made further shooting attempts today. But suddenly the friend looked sharply to the side, noticing the movement, and felt that something unusual was happening near the target now. The arrow was already in the target, firmly lodged in the center, and it seemed that the shot had been perfect for the hero. He didn't understand how this was possible and tried to figure out how the hero had managed to hit so accurately just now. It seemed incredible, as if the hero had broken the rules of the game, and the spectators watched what was happening with growing admiration today. The friend thought the bro was serious and tried to figure out what it was, remembering every moment of the hero's shot now. 7 points, 10 points, 10 points. Out of the remaining 26 shots, the hero mentally calculated the possible outcome. The arrows flew towards the target in an instant, one after another, forming a dense pattern of hits and increasing the tension among the stream's viewers. The target seemed about to break, the wood creaked, and each new shot increased the pressure on its center more and more. All the shots flew straight to the center, with almost no deviation, and created the feeling that the hero was born an archer by nature. The target began to fly back as all 26 shots hit the bull's eye, demonstrating the hero's incredible accuracy today. The main character raised his fist in victory. He got 287 points as a result of the quest test. At that moment, he accomplished the impossible using only level 2 equipment and exceeded the expectations of all the onlookers. A clear sky was visible above the stone building. Light clouds floated in the distance, creating a calm background for the future events of the plot. The coins flew through the air, shimmering in the light, and created a festive feeling, as if luck itself was smiling on the heroes now. Having caught them, the girl sighed, thinking that it was so boring. Was there really nothing interesting in this city nearby? Apart from ripping off weaklings whose pockets were no better protected than a public portal, the heroine saw no entertainment around her. Suddenly, she heard a sound and looked in that direction, alert, as if she sensed the approach of possible prey nearby. 2 male silhouettes appeared at the gate. They were slowly approaching, and the girl watched their gait with an appraising eye. She smiled and thought what kind of fools came to her of their own free will, completely unaware of the danger. The guy walked with a bag and a book in his hands. His steps were confident, and his gaze was directed forward towards the gate. Suddenly he turned his gaze to his friend and asked why he was so happy, as if he had just won a fortune. Yeon-woo replied that he couldn't help but smile, and that he was literally overwhelmed with joy after the shooting quest. The friend said it was awesome, and asked if the hero had ever done archery in school before. The friend was beaming, thinking that at this rate they would be rolling in money, and he imagined the future winnings from the stream. He launched a betting pool just in case, and they hit the jackpot on the most unexpected bet related to the hero's shooting. Yeon-woo happily said that it would be cool to do this more often, and dreamed of new successful quests together. The friend joyfully asked where they would go next and waited for the hero's answer, anticipating another adventure with him. Hyun replied that he was going to learn fencing, but first he would acquire the skill of agility, considering it important for the hero's style. The friend was indignant and said that agility is the #1 useless skill, and he did not understand the hero's choice. But the protagonist rushed forward, deciding that he had enough whining, and called on his friend to follow him confidently further. Yeon-woo started to catch up, mentally shouting, "Bro, wait for him," and tried to keep up with the fast hero now. He remembered that NPC was Leah, and it was not for nothing that everyone usually ignored the agility skill. It's just that Leah's quest is unreasonably difficult for such a useless skill, and many players prefer to ignore it altogether. The friend whispered, asking if the hero was sure he could handle it, and doubted the possibility of completing such a difficult quest at all. But without answering, Hyun rushed forward, showing that his decision had been made, and that he was no longer troubled by any doubts. He slowly approached the confident heroine, assessing her movements, and felt that the meeting would become important for him now. And he calmly said that he had come to learn what she was best at, fully recognizing her skill and authority. The girl said contentedly that she liked his attitude and noted the confidence of the hero who had come to ask for training. The heroine jumped up from her seat, abruptly changing her position, and showed that she was ready to begin her unusual test now. Quickly snatching the bag from the boys, she checked its contents, assessing whether the fee for the hero's training here was sufficient. She began to fly away, easily pushing off the ground, and it seemed that the distance between them was growing rapidly with each second. And turning around, she smiled, thinking that the hero was too slow and he still had a lot to learn. The road ahead was long. The girl stated that the tuition fee was in advance, 5,000 gold pieces, practically a gift, and asked if the hero had understood the terms correctly. Leaning against the wall, Hyun chuckled and reminded the girl that she herself called it tuition. The protagonist thought for a moment and said that she had stolen a lot of gold from him, over 55 regressions and reincarnations. For a while the girl looked at him with an attentive and appraising gaze, trying to understand his intentions. Then she calmly stated that she didn't like him, although she tried to speak as restrainedly as possible. She climbed up and the quest said that Leah had promised to teach the skill, but suddenly ran away. Hyun reflected that it was impossible to catch Leah unless she pulled out a lot of gold and made him wait for long hours. He decided that if he couldn't catch Leah himself, then he needed to call someone who was truly capable of doing it faster and more reliably. A question came from the store, in which the girl offered to find Leah instead of him, showing her willingness to help in an unexpected situation. The girl did not understand what was happening, and said that she was glad that he had returned, although she had no idea how he had learned about the existing sisterly bond. Hyun smiled and lied, claiming that such rumors had long been circulating in the secret streets of the city, where the strangest stories were discussed. The heroine sighed, and replied that she agreed to continue the conversation, although she still doubted his words and did not understand their origin. Hyun lied to his friend again, saying he had seen graffiti in the exact spot where Leah had recently been, hinting at a clue that might help in the search. When people in the chat began to deny his words, the hero declared that he needed to be more attentive to the world around him. He added that if they had immediately sent Astbel to prison, nothing good would have come of it. The girl sharply shouted at him that he had to go, because he wanted to find Leah and finish what he had started. Meanwhile, the heroine hummed a melodic song, enjoying a calm moment without unnecessary worries. She was playing with a ginger kitten, who was jumping around her cheerfully and trying to catch her hands, creating the feeling of an easy, carefree game. She laughed and said that he had probably already given up and stopped looking for her, considering further attempts completely useless. The girl confidently stated that he would never be able to find her, although she herself had some doubts. But then she was taken aback when she saw her own sister appearing behind her completely unexpectedly. After that, she jumped up and looked at her sister in bewilderment, trying to understand what was happening and why everything had changed. She screamed that it was unfair and demanded an explanation for her sister's appearance nearby, as what was happening seemed strange to her. The protagonist grinned and said that she herself had stated that any means were suitable to achieve the goal. The heroine turned to her sister and offered to talk, hoping to clarify the situation between them. She started screaming that she had told her sister many times not to go through other people's pockets without permission. She said she had warned her sister 100 times not to pick people's pockets, otherwise she could face danger. Finally, she said that after finishing the business, her sister should come to the shop and not be distracted. Hyun waved his hand at her and thanked Asbel for her help and patience in this difficult situation. The younger sister took out a book and said that she had never met people like him, emphasizing her sincere surprise at what was happening. She said with displeasure that a promise was still a promise and handed him the desired item, showing that she intended to fulfill the agreement. The girl flew away, saying that she was leaving because everything was terrible and that she hoped not to meet again, trying to end the conversation as quickly as possible. The friend asked with displeasure if he had found everything and said that he had finally waited for the process to be completed, expressing fatigue. Hyun replied that everything was fine. The camera followed him perfectly throughout the entire process, and he received a unique rank. The gem on the book glowed green, and the protagonist said that it was now time to learn fencing, moving on to the next stage. The hero's hands glowed with green magic, indicating that the new skill was beginning to manifest itself gradually and confidently, as if revealing its potential. Hyun was surprised because the book was disappearing right in his hands, and he was never used to this strange feeling that occurred every time. A friend said that viewers ask why he learned agility, because it raises a lot of questions and generates new discussions. The protagonist replied that if they ran equally fast, then his agility would give him a slight advantage. He added that by using his agility, he would be able to run a little faster and win any competition. Yeonwoo laughed smugly and said that even with the unique rank, the difference seemed insignificant. He took out his sword and said that they were going to learn fencing since he was more experienced and had the second rank. People in the chat started writing that the senior player was exaggerating since an advanced rank is considered a normal level. It seems like most of the players, including Yeonwoo, are following the same route, repeating the same actions. The reason is probably due to the guidebook, which is considered the best option for beginners. The reason why no one had completed Aspel's quest before him was due to Julio's scam and mistrust. Astbella was eventually taken away and never seen again, which greatly changed the course of events. And Leah became a character that no one was looking for, although she could help many players. Of course, there are many players who experience the role-playing game in their own way, but the freedom of action gets in the way of understanding the path. The fact that he was the first to complete Aspel and Leah's quests means that what he experienced became clues to the right path. Hyun decided to go through the role-playing game his own way, relying on experience and intuition. The protagonist said that he did not understand the goddess's plan and no longer wished to submit to her under any circumstances. He firmly declared that, regardless of the goddess's plans, he was no longer going to be her pathetic puppet. The protagonist asked his friend why the most popular swordsman character was so far from his usual place. Yeonwoo wearily replied that it had to do with the concept of the hermit swordsman that the game's creators had developed. Then he pointed his finger at the gazebo and said that they had come to the very place where the required character was. The friend spoke loudly to the silhouette and announced that they had come to learn fencing, hoping to receive instructions. The man turned his head sharply in their direction, showing that he had heard their words and was ready to respond. His face was hidden by the shadow of his hat, and only his eyes glowed brightly in the darkness, creating a frightening impression. Yeonwoo thought for a moment and noted that the man looked just as menacing as he had in their previous meetings. The man quickly placed the cup on the table, indicating his readiness to begin training and stop resting. Swordsman instructor Balder walked towards the heroes, demonstrating confidence and a strict professional approach. He ordered to swing the wooden sword and continue the movement until the command to stop was given. Then he suggested that the wooden sword was behind the student's back and that it needed to be taken out immediately. He said that since they had come to learn to wield a sword, unnecessary words were completely unnecessary and would interfere with the matter. The boy threw the rest of his equipment on the ground, preparing to focus solely on sword training. The fencing quest was divided into 2 stages, the first involving sword swings and the second involving full-fledged sparring. Yeonwoo started asking the chat how long it took other players to complete the fencing training quest. The chat responded that some took about an hour and a half, while others spent even 2 hours to complete the task. One player told a story about a man who, while drunk, spoke rudely to Balder and got hurt. Yeonwoo thought for a moment and said that the tutorial character was indeed capable of attacking players under certain conditions. Suddenly, they started receiving numerous donations, showing that viewers were actively supporting what was happening. The friend shouted that there was already more than 800,000 won at stake and that the hero had 25 minutes to complete the task. Hyun thought about it, comparing the amount with the reward for the bow quest, and realized that it was significantly higher than before. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to clear his mind and focus on the test at hand. When swinging a wooden sword, the important thing is not the number of repetitions or the timing, but the correct technique and concentration. Balder does not expect outstanding abilities from a newcomer from the very beginning, but only evaluates the seriousness of the approach. Most of the players Balder met in the game considered the sword a classic and treated it superficially. For Balder, such an attitude from the players must be incredibly offensive because the sword demands respect. Balder only needs one thing, namely the student's serious attitude towards the sword and complete concentration on training. The man extended his palm forward and said, "That was enough," ending the first stage of the training. The chat was amazed and couldn't understand how the hero was able to pass the stage since he didn't even make a full swing. A notification arrived that the related quest had been unlocked, and Balder expressed his respect for the hero's determination. A friend said that now the second stage of the quest begins, which will be more difficult and require more effort. He shouted that this meant the task had been successfully completed and began to rejoice at the unexpected result. They received a donation from the sword god, who offered to double the reward for a successful double block of a wooden sword. Hyun raised an eyebrow and asked if the donation would really be doubled right now and if the sender was sure. Then a new donation arrived, in which the sword god promised to double the total prize fund for 4 successful blocks. The protagonist thought for a moment, realizing that he needed to block 4 attacks, and noted that he would have to try hard. Yeonwoo squealed, saying that he was afraid of heights and didn't understand why he had to participate in jumps or challenges. A smiling Hyun appeared behind him, clearly having something in mind and about to act decisively. The guy became wary and said that he didn't understand Hyun's gaze because his eyes were moving too quickly and strangely. The protagonist tried to console his friend by saying that they were not going to bungee jump or perform dangerous stunts. He then asked his friend with a smile to trust him and not to worry about the upcoming test. Yanwu sighed heavily, showing that he was still nervous but was ready to continue with the hero. They received a donation from the sword god, who added 1,000,000 won to the quest and praised their strong friendship. The chat was amazed by the generosity of the donation and actively discussed the incredible size of the reward for completing the task. The protagonist was surprised to realize that the amount had reached 1.8 million won, which was impressive. The man watched the hero closely, assessing his readiness for the next stage and his level of concentration. In Hyun's hands was a simple sword that looked modest but demanded serious handling. And in the hands of the enemy was a magic sword, which shone and demonstrated significantly greater power and danger. The protagonist pointed his wooden sword at his opponent, maintaining his stance and trying not to lose concentration in the tense moment. And the enemy confidently approached, blue magic shining around him, creating a sense of impending danger for the main character. The man quickly lifted his foot off the ground, demonstrating incredible speed and confidence in front of the protagonist. And he began to fly forward, leaving behind a light trail of magic that increased the tension of what was happening around him. Hyun gritted his teeth, realizing that it had all started and that now he would have to endure a serious test. The man began to draw his sword across the ground, creating a vibration that foreshadowed a quick and dangerous blow. And then he dealt a powerful blow to the main character, hoping to break his resilience and confidence. Yanwu was shocked, as he didn't expect such fury from his opponent, who attacked with incredible power. Everyone in the chat was in shock, as what was happening looked terrifying, and every participant in the discussion expressed strong surprise. But the protagonist held back the blow with his sword, managing to maintain his balance and not lose control of the situation. The friend shouted, "Wow," because he didn't expect that the main character would be able to withstand such a powerful blow. The enemy sighed heavily, realizing that his attempt to quickly end the fight had not brought the desired result. And he got into an attacking stance, preparing to continue the attack and test the limits of the protagonist's capabilities. The protagonist swung his sword, hoping to seize the initiative and force the enemy to retreat. And he struck the enemy's sword, creating a sharp sound that echoed throughout the surrounding space. As expected, the game dulls the sense of movement, so the protagonist experienced a slight delay in reaction. It's probably a matter of synchronization with equipment, as such effects often appear during active battles. Hyun took off in one leap, trying to change his position and gain a small tactical advantage. Thank God he had at least learned agility, because this skill was now saving him from serious damage. The man said, "I see you're thinking about something," because his gaze noticed the slightest fluctuations in his opponent's mood. You pretend to be calm, although the situation is clearly putting pressure on you and forcing you to make quick decisions. Or maybe the situation is simply unexpected, since such battles rarely go without surprises and difficult moments. And after the guy's response, the chat also exploded for you, discussing the provocations and strange behavior of the enemy. The man narrowed his eyes as he realized that he might have underestimated the main character and his hidden abilities. "But I will quickly end this," the man declared, confident in his superiority and the power of his magical attacks. With a smile, the guy said, "We'll see how it all ends," because he wasn't going to back down from the threat. And they entered the fray again, creating a whirlwind of movement, magic, and tense atmosphere around them. Suddenly, Hyun was hit with a blow that forced him to retreat and try to regain his balance. Yanwu shouted that he was too strong, as a simple quest for swordsmanship turned out to be an incredibly difficult test. Thank God he dodged it, because such a blow could have caused serious harm and ended the fight prematurely. They said in the chat that the Black Dragon had physical characteristics, because its attacks looked insanely powerful. The enemy is probably starting to get nervous, because the main character held up much better than initially expected. The man rushed forward again, hoping to break the resistance and end the fight in his favor. After all, Hyun, who should have fallen long ago, held his own better than his opponent could have imagined at the beginning of the fight. The man attacked with magic with all his might, but the protagonist held it back, demonstrating incredible resilience. The enemy's eyes widened, as he did not expect such resistance from the main character. The guy grinned and his movements became more sweeping, as he began to feel confident and in control of the situation. The enemy jumped back, trying to catch his breath and prepare for the next powerful blow. Stronger magic began to appear around him, creating a sense of impending danger for everyone. Hyun broke out in a cold sweat, because what was happening was becoming really dangerous and required caution. But there is nothing left to do. We must enter the battle, because retreat now will lead to inevitable defeat. And they took off from the ground, creating a whirlwind of magic and energy that surrounded them in an intense battle. The enemy had already turned completely black, and blue lightning was flying around him, enhancing his terrifying appearance. The protagonist did not lose confidence and ran forward, hoping to seize the initiative and strike. They began to resist again, creating chaotic movements that made it difficult to predict the next strike. and the sword began to crack because the pressure of the enemy's magic and strength became too great for the weapon. And then it simply broke apart and flew upward, leaving the main character without his main means of protection. Hyun's smile widened with satisfaction as he realized that the situation had changed in his favor in an unexpected way. The man watched in amazement, as he had not expected such an outcome and had temporarily lost confidence. He returned to his normal form as the magic dissipated, and the tension of the battle gradually began to fade. Falling to the ground, the protagonist exhaled, realizing that he had made 4 successful blocks, which had been incredibly difficult for him in the intense fight. Hyun stated with satisfaction that the mission was accomplished, as he had managed to overcome the challenge and maintain confidence in his own abilities. Yeonwoo approached him and said that he would count the money for the stream and settle everything after the broadcast ended. The guy couldn't believe that his friend had actually decided to give him the money, because such generosity seemed completely unexpected. Suddenly, Yeonwoo said that they had met in the army, reminding him of the past and causing a slight feeling of nostalgia. And he squeezed the protagonist's shoulder, asking what he did before the army, trying to understand his past experience. The protagonist thought, recalling the 55 cycles of regression, transmigration, and reincarnation, which cannot be explained in ordinary words. He replied that before the army he had done a little bit of everything, trying not to reveal the true nature of his past trials. A friend said the chat is currently speculating on his job titles, listing chef, assassin, contract killer, and special forces samurai. Hyun didn't understand, because they split the profits in half, and he didn't see the point in taking everything, but his friend confidently explained the situation. The protagonist replied, thanking him for saying so, and added that it was good because they wouldn't have to bungee jump. The chat laughed, as no one believed they were actually going to do this, and the participants in the discussion were actively joking. Donat from the Sword God donated 100,000 won, asking to fight with swords more often in order to observe and learn. The guy replied, "Oh wow," thanked the Sword God for the generous donations, and promised to use the sword more often in battle. A man stood silently by a small tree, watching what was happening, and without any emotion on his face. Hyun thought about it because this guy looked balanced and calm, although there was a hidden tension in his gaze. He appeared calm, but was clearly holding back his anger, which showed in the subtle movements of his hands. He probably blamed himself for allowing a newbie like Hyun to predict all his moves in battle. He came closer and asked if the sparring was over, trying to speak calmly and not show his inner irritation. The man calmly answered yes, asking her to wait there, as he had one more thing to do. The protagonist understood that he was gritting his teeth, hiding his emotions, and that his next opponent would be very unlucky. The man handed him a book, on the precious stone of which a sword was visible, symbolizing the completion of the test. The quest is completed. According to Balder, the rewards have been increased to the maximum, and the protagonist has received 3,000 gold. He received a donation from Onlywords, who donated 10,000 won, asking him to teach him fencing. And in the chat they wrote that 4 uniques in 15 seconds is incredibly cool, especially the unique fencing rank. Hyun whispered to his friend to react for him for now, since he still had one more important action to perform. He turned to Balder, trying to speak confidently and calmly, despite the internal tension, and he asked if he had anything else left for the main character, expecting to hear important information. The man was silent for a moment, as if weighing the words he was going to say in response. And then he began to take something out of his sleeve, saying that he had heard about his teacher moving to Edlin. He took out a gray handkerchief and said that if the main character meets his teacher, he should show him this item. He will at least listen to the main character, because the scarf served as a sign of trust and respect between students. The man's teacher would be where the wind gathered, and this place seemed significant for the further journey. Hyun thought about the place, trying to figure out why it was so important and what might await him there. And returning to his friend, he said that now they were returning to the city because business needed to be completed. The donation said that him going to donated 1,000 won, warning that crowds of players were already rushing to his door. Yeonwoo asked if this meant that they would now head to Master Balder to wait for confirmation. There was surprise in the chat, as no one expected Balder to have a teacher, and the discussion became especially lively. But Hyun said wearily that that was all for today, as his strength was running out after a long, intense fight. He stretched, saying that he also had to go to work, and there would be problems if he didn't get at least a little sleep. The friend replied that they had been streaming for a long time, wished them good night, and asked them to come into the game right after work. When the protagonist took off his helmet, he noticed how hot it had become, as the stress of the battle had left him very exhausted. He was sweating like crazy, realizing that he needed a shower and sleep to restore his strength. He wondered if he had gotten too carried away with fencing, because he hadn't even moved his body or moved his arms. Yeonwoo wrote to him saying that he had done a great job today, would translate everything and go straight to bed. 3 million appeared on the account, and Hyun froze, his eyes widening because the amount was incredibly large. His hand was shaking, because he didn't expect to see so many donations yesterday and today. It seemed incredible. He thought that he had played for less than 10 hours in total, and was surprised by the generosity of the audience. The guy said that he only wanted to help because the main character had problems with money, but he would not accept help. 100 million is not a bad starting salary, because such a sum could change the life of the main character. The hero calmly replied thank you, because he really wouldn't refuse such a salary, even though they had been RPing together. He wanted to first hear what his interlocutor himself wanted in order to understand the further direction of the conversation between them. Hyun smiled to himself because it seemed right to him to please his mother with such small deeds from time to time. Suddenly, a loud scream from his mother was heard calling for Kang Hanbit, causing him to jump in surprise. Hyun asked her in confusion why she had gotten up so early, since he had expected to see her later. She shouted that it was already morning, but something else was more important, because she didn't understand where this money came from. The guy looked at her at first with confusion, trying to understand what exactly had caused such a violent reaction. But he didn't have time to answer, because his mother started hitting him on the head with her hand, accusing him of his nighttime pranks. The protagonist shouted that he had earned the money honestly, asking her to at least listen before beating her. Mom narrowed her eyes, thinking that such money could only be suddenly obtained through gambling, which caused her anxiety. And the son replied that he told her about Envu, who gave her a gift so that they could play together. They streamed the gameplay together and the audience really enjoyed it, so he made some money from the views. He tried to console his mother, reminding her that she knew perfectly well that he would never break the law. The woman exhaled and said to talk later, when he returned from work, because it was time for him to get ready. Hyun shouted to his mother that he was telling the truth, hoping to convince her at least a little of his sincere words. She turned around and said that she had not said that she did not believe him, but that she was only worried about her son. She's just worried because he works so hard as if it were a real job that required a lot of effort every day. The main character thought to himself that his mother shouldn't worry, because he would cope with all the difficulties. He was confident that she would no longer have to carry this debt alone, as before. He decided to work hard so that his mother would not need anything and could live peacefully without worries. Hyun thought wearily, having experienced regression, possession, and reincarnation in another world 55 times in a row. The man was indignant, saying that the intern should not be daydreaming from the very morning, causing him irritation. When his boss snaps at him in the morning for no reason, it's incredibly annoying and ruins his entire workday. His boss, Lee Min-ho, left on business, leaving behind a huge pile of documents immediately after his arrival. The documents were complex but neatly prepared, so he was able to understand everything without any serious difficulties. But just as he was about to start work, the team leader suddenly called him, demanding his immediate attention. The team leader said that he was only on probation, so he started picking on him over trivial things. The man would throw down a card and tell me to go down and get him some coffee, without giving any details. Then Hyun asked the team leader what kind of coffee he should get, since there were quite a few options. The man just clicked his tongue in irritation, showing his displeasure with the intern asking unnecessary questions instead of completing the task quickly. He angrily barked that Lee Min-ho had told them to always have iced Americanos, demanding that they follow the usual order. The protagonist sharply replied that Lee Min-ho did indeed say so, but he simply forgot because he was tired. After all, the hero understood that the team leader was trying to hook Lee Min-ho at any opportunity, even the most insignificant one. Even a simple task would make his legs feel like lead, as the pressure at work was especially intense. When he bought coffee and returned, the team leader had already scolded Lee Min-ho, continuing to create an unpleasant atmosphere. He watched and listened to this nonsense indifferently, as if such scenes were a common occurrence for him. And then he spoke slowly, trying to explain the situation and express his attitude to what was happening around him. He said that with his current workload, it was impossible to complete the assignment, as there was too much work. The man squeezed the paper, saying that Lee Min-ho had grown up and was now picking at it, causing discontent. He threw all the documents so that they scattered across the floor, creating a real mess all around. The protagonist put the glasses on the table and told the team leader that he had brought his coffee as requested. He began to help his colleague collect documents from the floor, trying to at least slightly correct the chaos that had arisen. The team leader seemed to understand what he was trying to do, because his gaze became frightening and tense. The man was simply indignant, considering what was happening to be a real circus that was distracting everyone from work. They returned to their seats, picking up the documents, but Min-ho looked very thoughtful after what happened. His eyes, reflected in the monitor, were even more empty than usual, causing alarm to the observer. Then he finally spoke, apologizing to Kang Hanbit, who had to witness the chaos. The protagonist replied that everything was fine, since the team leader was probably just having a bad day. The colleague continued, saying that he was apologizing not only for this, but also for a completely new project. He said that the project would take a lot of time, so he wouldn't be able to help for a while. Then Hyun asked, having briefly seen the name of the project when he opened the folder, whether the new project was related to RP. The guy wearily replied that the project was related to the equipment industry, the mechanisms were complex, and it would take a long time to figure them out. And the main character confidently stated that he thought he could help his colleague with this new, complex project. The sky was already sinking into the evening sunset, painting the city with a soft light that created a calm atmosphere around. The hero walked slowly, thinking about the past day and the upcoming decisions that could change his future. As he got off the bus, he looked at his phone, checking messages and remembering the conversation about the project. Suddenly, a scream was heard and Hyun heard his friend say that he was already there, getting his attention. The protagonist looked up in bewilderment, trying to understand who was calling him and what was happening nearby. A guy in oversized clothes approached him, looking a little tired, but still energetic and alive. He asked how the work went, whether everything went smoothly, trying to understand the hero's mood after a hard day. Then Hyun asked his friend what was wrong with him, wondering if he had slept at all that night, since he didn't look very well. He replied that he had slept for 3 whole hours and suggested going inside to talk quietly there. Looking at his friend, Yeon-woo asked if it was really that bad, trying to assess the seriousness of the situation. And Hyun replied that he could dedicate an entire stream to whining about his team leader and work. With his head on the table, the protagonist asked what exactly his friend wanted to talk about that evening. The friend immediately pointed the phone towards Hyun's face, showing the screen and preparing to explain his idea in more detail. He said that these people wrote after yesterday's stream, there are companies for every taste for the hero. Even a large company, Yonghwa Gaming, offered a starting salary of 100 million won, which impressed my friend. He continued by saying that everyone was so eager to hire Hyun, so it was worth choosing one of the companies. Yeon-woo said awkwardly, asking Hyun-woo to relax his face and tell him what happened at work. But the main character suddenly jumped up and demanded not to hide anything, reminding him that his friend could not lie. The frightened friend replied that he was not hiding anything, trying to convince the hero of his sincerity and honesty. Hyun asked if his friend really wanted him to join a big company, doubting his motives. The guy replied, Hyun, wait, he's not angry, he's just worried about his friend and his future. And the main character grabbed his friend by the hair as tightly as he could and told him not to keep everything inside. He screamed in pain and fell face down on the table, calling the hero mean because he just wanted to help. He explained that he wanted Hyun to find a good job when he was struggling with money, considering 100 million a decent salary. Then Hyun replied, thank you, saying that he wouldn't be against such a salary, but his friend himself suggested working together in the RP. He first said that he wanted to hear exactly what his friend wanted before making a final decision. My friend thoughtfully replied that RPG is a popular game, but honestly admitted that it doesn't really suit him. Having adventures in a world with complete freedom of movement sounds cool, but it's difficult to play, so he made little progress. To be honest, he enjoys watching other people's actions more than playing. That's why for him, Hyun is the one who shines the brightest in RP, attracting the attention of numerous viewers. Everything new and interesting he sees when he plays with Hyun seems special and amazingly inspiring to him. He said he wanted to be there and watch this masterpiece, not missing a single important detail of what was happening. He added that he wants to share this with other people, showing them the game through the eyes of the hero and conveying his own emotions. The protagonist responded that this is why he wants to create an MSP, at the center of which will be a friend who is a source of inspiration. A friend said that it would not be a strict corporation, but rather a guild that would operate both in real life and in the game. Then Hyun realized that this was the same thing his friend had talked about in the army, recalling an old conversation and connecting it with current events. Yeon-woo said that Hyun remembered, although he only mentioned it once during training, and asked how he planned to make money. Yeon-woo explained that the streaming platform Recorder has introduced a video upload feature and the advertising revenue there is quite high. He added that Hyun is currently the most talked about user on the Recorder, attracting the attention of many viewers. People will start playing RP when they see how the hero plays, and the number of people wanting to join them will grow. Then the protagonist asked if it wasn't this friend who had tried to get him a job at a large corporation before. And the friend added that Hyun won't be an employee, they will be co-directors, and he will help when the hero streams alone. Yeon-woo promised that they would succeed if they worked together and never gave up, maintaining confidence. The protagonist thought that he was playing RP partly because of Yeon-woo, but it was also his good chance to change the future. He decided that this was his last chance to reach the airport, which was connected with the mystery of his past deaths, which had haunted him for a long time. He looked at his reflection in the cup and wondered if he could find out everything by completing the game and finding the airport. But Hyun couldn't understand what exactly was the reason why he had to die again. Suddenly, the hero's attention was drawn to the sound of a phone notification, and the protagonist looked warily at the source of the unexpected signal. The friend immediately picked up the phone from the table, carefully studying the screen and trying to understand the reason for the sudden activity around him. He stated that there were a ton of messages here and seemed extremely concerned about the unexpected amount of information coming in. He started chewing the meat, saying that this is the life of a popular guy who is constantly being written to by different people without stopping. But suddenly, Yeonwoo exclaimed that he didn't understand what they were all talking about and asked Hyun to quickly make a call. The friend nervously begged to pick up the phone, repeating the request several times since the situation seemed extremely alarming and incomprehensible to him. And then he started shouting, asking why he wasn't taking it, and looked completely confused by what was going on around him. After asking about what happened, Yeonwoo asked if his friend remembered the vanguard they had seen earlier in Edlin. He said it was the vanguard of a German corporation called Rashton and looked extremely concerned about the new circumstances. He explained that Rashton had learned about the reduction in rewards for Arzbel's quest and had decided to completely monopolize its completion. And now, for some reason, there are no other slimes to be seen anywhere except the explosive ones, and rumors have emerged about a possible conspiracy by the main character. An angry cry was heard in which the friend scolded Rashton, the Black Dragon, and Roper, calling them impudent and cunning swindlers. The girl was outraged by the fact that he was yelling and demanded that he immediately shut up, even for one short second. She told him to be glad that he received a rare item, because if he had been a little late, he would never have seen an ordinary one. The girl stated that this was obvious, since unique items would not be given out to everyone if one thought a little in advance. The guy said that he couldn't have known about such a decision, and the girl barked that one more word, and she would salt him in the rear. Regardless, Black Dragon is obliged to stream an explanation, likely coming up with something after Rashton's announcement. The protagonist asked how big the Rashton Corporation was considered and wanted to understand its real influence on the players. He explained that the value of a corporation is determined by strong players, since that ranger has a power of 9,000, which is considered weak. Hyun smiled, saying he had a solution, though he wasn't going to reveal the full details just yet. He told Yeonwoo that they should start the stream a little later to check one important detail first. He noted that there were some things that needed to be checked before they started streaming and taking further action. It was already deep night outside, and the protagonist felt the peace that the dark silence around him brought. The protagonist flipped through the pages of the book, carefully studying the text and trying to find the necessary information to check. He was diligently searching for something in the book, hoping to find an important clue that could help him in the future. And suddenly Hyun smiled contentedly, realizing that he had finally found the right place and confirmed his suspicions completely. The boy exclaimed that he had finally found what he was looking for, and felt a surge of confidence in his own actions. The protagonist got out of bed and walked forward, preparing to move on to the next stage of his carefully thought-out plan. Once in the game, the main character decided to go check something to make sure his assumptions were correct. He said that the cave was exactly where he remembered it, and he felt confident in his further actions. As he thought, all the explosive slimes had gathered in this cave, creating a dangerous and unstable situation around. You need to be careful not to aggro them, because any wrong move can cause serious consequences for the hero. On the main character's back was a sword, which he had prepared in advance, realizing the possible danger ahead. Hyun understood that there was only one reason why the bomb slugs would gather in one place at the same time. And suddenly the guy said that he had found what he was looking for, and his face lit up with an expression of satisfaction and confidence. Before him lay the king of the explosive slimes, a huge and dangerous monster capable of destroying everything around him with a single move. The explosive slime king had the ability to absorb normal slimes, increasing in size and becoming significantly stronger. But he shouldn't attract so many slimes at once, because such behavior looks extremely suspicious and strange. There must be another reason for what is happening, and the main character began to carefully examine the surrounding area. Suddenly, Hyun noticed monster bait in the rocks above, which looked extremely suspicious and clearly artificial. The bait had the name Rushten written on it, which immediately explained the source of the whole problem that had arisen in this cave. Monster bait was a single-use item from the northern dungeon used to attract various creatures. The Rashten set up a decoy in the explosive Slime King's cave, and chaos ensued as the effects overlapped. It's no wonder there are only explosive slimes around, because the bait enhanced their natural ability and attracted many creatures. The protagonist began to summon a fireball, gathering energy, and preparing to deliver the decisive blow to the king. He directed all his power towards the king, hoping to destroy him with one strong and precise spell. Under the force of the flame, the slime began to melt, gradually losing its shape and resisting the hero's destructive attack. And eventually its inner core began to collapse, becoming unstable and gradually falling apart. Before the king was completely erased, the system reported receiving 7,720 experience and increasing the level. The rewards kept coming, and the main character didn't understand how many there were, wondering at what was happening around him. The video, posted on the forum, caused a huge stir, attracting the attention of many players and sparking heated discussions. In fact, Hyun recorded this video in a cave, documenting what was happening for further analysis of the situation. A Yeonwoo posted it anonymously to avoid unnecessary questions and to avoid attracting the attention of the Rushton Corporation. He didn't include the moment of the destruction of the explosive slimes, so the comments were filled with curses directed at Rushton. Zentrumber, a character found in the guidebook, was a miner who personally dug the cave of the explosive slime king. He was in despair because the cave he dug was immediately taken over by the king of explosive slimes, causing a lot of problems. The confirmation of Zentrumber's existence and the disappearance of the explosive slimes allowed the protagonist to easily determine the king's location. The strange thing is that Zentrumber's name was in the guidebook, although important information about the cave was completely absent. But there was no information about the cave itself, which aroused additional suspicions in the protagonist. The guidebook doesn't have to reveal all the cards, but the key question remained the level of knowledge of an A-rank adventurer. There is an incredible amount of information there, but its accuracy leaves much to be desired, and some of it turned out to be outright lies. It felt like one important cog had been deliberately removed, hiding part of the truth from the players. The A-rank adventurer remained a mystery, and the protagonist tried to figure out who he really was. A voice was heard claiming that mastery was the reason for the fear of magic among most players. It was Yeonwoo in a mage costume, explaining that full development of the mastery was necessary to learn the skills of the next rank. The average person can't handle such a strain, so many give up magic and rely on buffs to strengthen their powers. They move on to another skill tree, considering it simpler and more accessible for further development. A friend yelled that it was impossible to achieve 100% mastery in one day, considering such a thing completely unrealistic. He cried, insisting to Hyunwoo that this sounded like a belated joke, and asked him to confirm that what he had heard was false. The protagonist replied that it was just the lowest first rank, which did not require much effort. Yeonwoo demanded to open the skill window and show proof, claiming that any spell requires at least a month. He said that he was telling the truth, and after seeing this, his friend fell to his knees, shocked by what was happening. Yeonwoo stated that it was a bug, as something like this couldn't be normal, and considered the situation extremely suspicious. The protagonist replied that it happened by chance and that he did not want his friend to experience excessive joy, which would cause tension. And then he asked not to talk about skill on the stream in order to avoid unnecessary attention and possible questions. But the friend didn't understand why this couldn't be discussed, since such a topic could cause quite a stir among the audience. Hyun replied that he wanted to show the viewer something fun that was directly related to the events and details that were happening, namely, the villains who stood behind, carefully watching the preparations for the stream and the subsequent actions. The stream began to load, and viewers heard Roper's greeting as he appeared on screen, capturing the audience's attention. People started writing angry messages in the chat, discussing the subscriber icon and criticizing the monopolists from Rushton. Yeonwoo reassured viewers that they had no connection to Rushton and would soon provide evidence. Today, the Black Dragon said he had some business to attend to before finding Master Balder, so the audience was invited to watch together. The protagonist asked with a grin if Leah had run away, and the girl answered in the affirmative, confirming his guess. She sighed, saying that Leah was completely disobedient and always did things her own way, no matter how hard she tried. Hyun smiled, calmly explaining that at that age, children often behave like this and require patience. He promised that very soon they would be able to live together, creating a calmer, more stable, and safer environment for everyone. The heroine responded warmly, sincerely hoping that what she had said would come true, and thanking the Black Dragon for his constant support and care. And then he asked if he had come for the next spell, clarifying the possibility of obtaining a new skill for further development. She smiled, saying that the next spell was already available, and suggested that they begin studying it in detail immediately. And she handed over the second book of spells, containing the necessary information and important instructions for fully mastering the skill. The quest required learning the second spell from Arsbel using the book, and the reward included gold and stats. Hyun saw people in the window, assuming that they must be curious to watch what was happening and discuss what they saw. And then, without thinking, he opened the book, starting to study the new spell and carefully checking its properties and features. The system reported the quest had been completed and the rank had improved, significantly increasing the reward from 10,000 to 20,000 gold. Yeonwoo announced that Black Dragon had risen in rank and learned Fire Explosion, causing genuine surprise and admiration among the audience. The girl said that if progress stalled, it was worth going to the Institute of Magical Research in the city of Ifrit. As he left, the guy responded with gratitude and said that he would definitely come back again if necessary for further research. When the heroes opened the door, there were a lot of people outside, carefully watching what was happening and discussing the situation. The chat started to talk about Rashton, and they discussed how the corporation's representatives were swarming around, demonstrating their influence. Looking at the man, it was clear that they already controlled the entire territory, acting like ruthless monopolists. Men walked past the heroes, and Hyun said that it was creepy, asked everyone around to relax a little right now. Interestingly, the hero wondered if something bad had happened to them, and continued to silently watch their faces from afar. The protagonist chuckled, hoping that this time everything would go well, and wondered how it would all end for each participant. Everyone in the shop was shouting at Arsbel, demanding that he bring the spell books here for general use right now. These guys from Rashton seemed ruthless to the heroes. Their greed and cold looks caused tension. Hyun replied that there was no point in arguing, as they were incredibly greedy, and he quietly laughed along with his friend standing next to him. The friend asked what exactly Hyun wanted to show because if this continues, Rashton will monopolize everything in this world again. The man said that he would count to 3 and they would open the books at the same time, looking carefully at the characters in front of them. After these words, the guy stood up, adjusted his clothes, and prepared to begin the strange, magical experiment, along with the others. Hyun declared that it was time to begin, his voice sounding confident, although inside the hero, there was still a slight feeling of excitement today. Meanwhile, the man continued counting, his face remained serious, and the atmosphere around him became tense for everyone present. As soon as the number 3 was announced, the heroes exchanged glances and prepared to open their books simultaneously at one decisive moment. Everyone suddenly opened their books, the pages rustled, and the air was filled with the feeling of an approaching magical flash near the heroes. The protagonist laughed, calling it showtime, and watched the reactions of the other players in the store. Everyone started screaming about the fire, thinking that the books had caught fire, and looked in confusion at the burning pages around them now. In the chat, no one understood why the books were burning, discussing what was happening and trying to find a reasonable explanation among the players. The hero felt himself becoming warm and cozy, although using wind magic on fire is usually useless for extinguishing the flames. Artsbell got angry. She became angrier and angrier, although the store did not catch fire, which seemed funny to the observers around. The heroine barked, demanding that everyone leave here. Her voice sounded sharp and did not tolerate objections at that moment. Hyun smiled, saying that everything would burn, calling what was happening a strange waste, but continued to calmly watch the fire around him. The quest required learning a second magic spell from Artsbell using her book, promising gold, flash, and experience for the hero. The man asked about the number of people who completed the task. His interest was evident in the expression on his face at that moment. He was told that no one was there, and silence hung in the air, increasing the awkwardness of the situation among the players present. Suddenly, the man began to approach the heroes. His steps sounded heavy, and his gaze became increasingly stern towards them. Chat noticed the ranger getting angry while discussing whether a top player would hit a newbie, while Black Dragon maintained his fearless hero image. The man invited the newcomer to talk, his voice sounding insistent, and those around him watched attentively as the conversation began between them. He started talking about the quest that had just appeared, asking why this particular hero was the only one who had completed it completely. Hyun replied that only he succeeded, and the veterans will have to figure out the reasons behind this success in the game today. The man became angry when he asked if the hero thought what was happening was a joke, and his irritation became noticeable to everyone around him in the store. He recalled that all 50 people before the hero, including himself, failed, losing the chance to receive the hero rank earlier. The man claimed that it couldn't be a simple coincidence that the hero was the only one who learned the skill properly among all the participants. The protagonist responded calmly, suggesting they speak frankly, and reminding them that because of them, other players had lost their chance to rank up. The chat wrote that Black Dragon was laying things out in detail, discussing his rudeness and the ranger's priceless reaction on air. The guy smiled, saying that the basis for rank advancement was skill, and looked closely at the person in front of him. He asked if they had maxed out their skill before picking up the magic book, and expected an honest answer from the veterans. The man replied that it was elementary, adding that in his opinion, something like this was obvious even to a newbie like him. The hero explained that it was necessary to increase the fireball mastery in order to advance to the next level of training in the game system. The man shouted that the condition applied to everyone, reminding them that the hero had also received the award without achieving maximum skill, in his opinion. The protagonist drawled that he didn't understand what the man was talking about, since he had already raised his skill to the maximum. Chat wrote that the ranger was panicking, finding it hilarious, admitting that he himself was a little worried while watching the stream. Hyun was decisive and said that if they didn't believe him, they could watch the stream where he would reveal his stats right now. The hero thought they decided that skill wasn't necessary just by watching the stream, and doubted the Vanguard's top gaming level. Looking at the stats, the man muttered that this couldn't be, his confidence visibly beginning to crumble in front of all the spectators. The man stated that what was happening seemed like nonsense and promised to file a complaint against the hero with the Game World Administration today. The protagonist replied that he should let him serve, he had nothing to hide, but the others probably had something to hide from the players around them. The ranger gritted his teeth, called the hero a puppy, his anger growing, but he held back further words in front of the stream's viewers. He turned around abruptly, snorted, said that they would definitely meet again soon, and walked out of the store in silence. The hero reminded everyone that from now on, everyone should play fair and not protect the zone for the sake of future profit. The heroes stood in front of the girl, yelling at her, demanding that she speak up so as not to miss a single opportunity for a future relationship. The guy thought that the heroes could try for 100 days, but still nothing would come of it, in his opinion. Asvel was a master who wanted her students to hone their skills quietly and humbly. Maybe because she had seen too many deaths of those who tried to jump above their heads, not listening to the mentor. As Ho Bin Huan repeated, the protagonist became impatient and greedy, forgetting the previous cautious principles of his path. The protagonist was caught trying to cheat and was ultimately expelled, losing his mentor's trust and the opportunity to study. Asvel's character and principles did not change even after the intervention of the game system. She remained strict and consistent with her students. The more Rastin complained, the worse she treated his people, just like she once treated the hero. The chat was laughing. Streamer Lawford declared Rastin his main enemy, saying that he was now seriously in trouble because of the conflict. A donation came in, the user donated 1,001, and the viewers decided that what was happening actually looked pretty cool on the stream. Yanwu thanked everyone for the donation, his voice sounding sincere, and the viewers' mood noticeably improved after the support during the broadcast. Hyun said he would stop by the village store for a while, planning to look at the goods and discuss plans with his friend on the way. However, before this, the hero needed to prepare some things, collect the necessary things, and think through his next steps carefully. The friend shouted, pointing somewhere into the distance. His gesture attracted attention, and the main character looked in the indicated direction. The protagonist looked back, asking with his eyes what was going on, his facial expression reflecting slight surprise and wariness at the situation. He didn't understand why there were so many people there, feeling a strange tension and curiosity mixed in the crowd around the shop. Yanwu responded by reminding Hyun that there was a lot he didn't know, and explained the reason for the crowd near the square. He pointed to a girl in a green robe standing in front, her figure standing out from the crowd, especially noticeable to the spectators. It was Rafina, a ranker and one of the few elementalists whose reputation attracted the attention of both players and spirits. The boy thought, remembering the words about there not being many elementalists, and assessed the rarity of her talent among the vanguard. Yanwu said that the spirit's power can only be used by those chosen by the spirits themselves, emphasizing the exclusivity of the ranker. The hero thought for a moment, finding the expression of using spirits a little different from the knowledge he had of such powers before. The protagonist still clearly remembered the past. Events associated with spirits remained vivid in his mind. He recalled the moment when he first made contact with the spirit, feeling the awe and wonder of the encounter then. Hyun asked if her name was really Rafina and inquired how strong she was by the standards of the avant-garde now. A friend stated that she is a vanguard of the 4,000, therefore incredibly strong, and specializes in water magic in battles. He added that her spiritual skills were stuck at rank 3, and the title of Elementalist was more of an honorary title among players. A friend asked Hyun if he was interested in perfume, and Hyun replied that having the power of perfume was very cool and inspiring. He explained that spirits are not the same as magic, their nature is different and requires a different approach. Although this is a game, the theory of innate talent still applies here, and the spirits only select suitable bearers of power for contracts. Hyun was surprised, saying that Rafina was one of those lucky enough to have an innate talent that was directly related to spirits. It was said that she had made a contract with both the water spirit and the air spirit in just 6 months of training. The protagonist noted that the 2 water attributes look impressive, enhancing her abilities in defense and supporting allies. He added that the air attribute complements her power, making her spells flexible and quick in combat situations on missions. The protagonist considered this combination to be quite unusual and cool, noting the rarity of such spiritual contracts among Vanguard players. Chat was delighted, calling the perfume's glow a blessing to the eyes, admitting that the perfume looked cute and incredibly attractive on screen. Yanwu admired Rafina's beauty, his gaze lingered on her, and his words sounded sincere and a little dreamy. He admitted that she looked impressive and understood why her image was so appealing to the crowd gathered around her today. Chat shouted, asking her not to leave, wanting to watch her a little longer, but he understood the limited time of the meeting in the square. Yanwu said that top Vanguard players are very reluctant to share information, considering it an important resource in competition. Only one player will complete the quest and become the owner of the reward, so information becomes a powerful weapon. They create their own carefully hidden world, and the protagonist wondered what kind of people these were around him. Hyun thought, feeling a strange kinship with those who had communicated with spirits and compared their experiences with his own past. The guy said that it was time to get ready for the next task, suggesting that they move on and not linger too long near the crowd. He added that they would come later, and his friend would see everything when the preparations were completed and a new test began. The protagonist said that the group had already arrived, marking the beginning of an important stage associated with a new place and teacher. He explained that the required point was located right here and looked around, assessing the situation and possible dangers nearby. The quest revealed rumors about the swordsman Baldur's teacher, promising a unique technique if he could gain his full recognition. Yanwu shouted, calling jumping there suicide, considering the risk excessive and dangerous for the unprepared vanguard players now. He called out to Hyun, noticing his silence, and tried to understand what thoughts were hidden behind the hero's calm expression. He noted Hyun's cunning look, recalling Baldur's previous quest, and suspected that the hero was planning another risky move. The friend was shocked, saying that it looked like a joke, but now he began to believe the hero's serious intentions. A friend said that the hero might not know, but even though it was a game, the sensations remained real, so it became painful. In the chat, they wrote that it's refreshing to see how a lazy person obsessed with money flies so fast, even though they think he can. In the chat, they were surprised that they were still flying, because the lazy guy passed out, and it will be for a long time, so the stress is enormous. Hyun narrowed his eyes because he knew that the right place was somewhere nearby, and he needed to take a closer look. And suddenly he saw a blue light that softly penetrated the fog and showed the way to the heroes. Realizing that they had finally arrived at the right place, the hero felt relieved and prepared to move on. The protagonist landed calmly, but Yeonwoo fell down exhausted because the flight was too hard for him. He held his cheek and said that he really thought he was going to die because the fall was incredibly painful. The protagonist held the handkerchief and understood that without an entrance ticket, it was impossible and dangerous to simply jump. Hyun said that he would tell everything when the guys from Regressions had returned 10,000 times because there was enough time. In the distance on the mountain, they noticed movement because there really was someone up there watching what was happening. The protagonist answered that it was true because it was Master Baldur, who rarely showed himself to strangers. Yeonwoo narrowed his eyes, asking if this man was a wind swordsman, and if they rose up, everything would be resolved. He happily declared that it was almost all over then, since this was not the first discovery, so they went faster. Hyun whispered, asking if the hero would go first, since it was quite spectacular inside, so it would be better to film everything himself. The friend was touched because Hyun even chose the right angle for the broadcast and was gradually becoming a real streamer. He exhaled, saying that since he was being pushed like that, he no longer had a choice, so he moved. Yeonwoo ran with a whistle, shouting to the audience that he was first, because he wanted to show his courage and speed. But suddenly a spear flew in front of the guy's face, forcing him to stop and realize that danger was lurking ahead. People started writing in the chat that he was the first, because the viewers were repeating Yeonwoo's words, not noticing the threat that was unfolding. Yeonwoo shouted at Hyunwoo, accusing him of knowing and doing it on purpose, but the hero pulled out his bow. He drew his arrow and began to aim, trying to pinpoint the exact direction of the threat and protect his friend. By shooting at the wall near his friend, the protagonist showed that the danger was real, and he should have been more careful. Yeonwoo said with fear that he might have gone a bit too far, as the situation was getting too tense. People started writing in the chat that the lazy guy should apologize, because they didn't know what was going on, but they thought changing the room owner was necessary. A multitude of arrows began to fly towards the walls, creating chaos around the heroes, so they had to take cover and move carefully. A friend jumped up to him and said, "Okay, it's time to move on," because standing still was dangerous. Hyun explained that he sensed potential traps, so he fired ahead, trying to make the path safe for everyone. A huge rock began to roll in front of the heroes, which could crush them, so an immediate reaction was required. The friend screamed, saying that it was impossible to dodge there because the stone was moving too fast and took up the entire passage. The protagonist summoned the flame, claiming that there was no need to dodge, as he was going to stop the stone by force. And he struck straight at the stone with force, destroying its structure and creating a passage to continue moving forward. Yeonwoo was surprised because the hero broke through the floor and dropped the stone down, preventing further threat. The guy thought for a moment, saying that he should let them fall, because it would be interesting to see if they would hit the right spot. Suddenly, spears began flying at them, forcing the heroes to take cover again and prepare for another attack from above. The protagonist resolutely took out his bow, realizing that only accurate shots would help stop the flying weapons. The chat was full of surprise, calling Black Dragon a Mongol, as his physical strength seemed completely unbelievable to the audience. The friend said in fear that they had run out of arrows, so they would have to find another way to defend themselves from attacks. And taking the sword from his back, he declared that it was okay because he could fight with a sword and cover Hyun. and he warned the hero to look around carefully, because traps could appear at any moment. Yan Wu told the viewers that he would take over the commentary as Hyun blocked all the flying arrows with his sword. He encouraged Hyun, saying that they were almost there, so they should hold on and not stop. Various weapons were flying towards them, creating chaos around them, so the heroes moved carefully and covered each other. The protagonist yelled at his friend to stop, as a new danger was emerging ahead that required immediate attention. The ground around my feet began to break, revealing that another trap was hidden under the floor, ready to spring into action. And spears emerged from under the floor, pointing upwards, so the heroes had to quickly jump back to avoid injury. But it's surprising that Hyun knew in advance that this would happen soon, because he sensed the traps intuitively. Now the boulder was falling from above, threatening to crush them, so an immediate solution was needed. The protagonist managed to summon a fiery explosion, and the boulder exploded, crumbling into pieces and clearing the way. Hyun sighed, saying that there was only a little time left, since the path was almost completed, and they were close to completing the test. A silhouette appeared on the mountain, and in the chat they said that they needed to talk to him quickly, knocking with internal thoughts. Yanwoo's eyes lit up, and he thought that now they would gain the skill that they had been waiting for together for a long time. But the silhouette calmly told the heroes to return back, and thus completely destroyed their hopes for a reward. The friend said in a frustrated tone that Hyun and the others had done everything in vain, and that their efforts seemed useless and completely wasted to him. The protagonist assumed that the girl had passed the test they had prepared, and that was why she was now behaving completely differently. But there was no further answer, for the master spoke little, and the silence weighed heavily on all those present around him. Asla had an extreme dislike for strangers, so if she approached too carelessly, she could kick out anyone who came too close to her. This was the 10th attempt, once the main character took possession of Asli's body and understood her habits and weaknesses completely. Gradually, the body absorbed all the thoughts and experiences of its owner, thanks to which the hero studied hundreds of types of traps in detail in advance. He also figured out how to win her over by using knowledge from past attempts and carefully building trust step by step. The girl glanced to the side and asked about the alcohol, wondering why it had been brought to this place today at all. She told the hero to put the alcohol away, but Hyun said it was better to roll the bottle back here immediately and carefully. She was asked if it was true that she didn't drink, and her interlocutors were surprised by her determination and strict attitude towards drinks in general. The heroine replied that she was sure she had said this clearly and had no intention of ever changing her mind about alcohol. The protagonist realized that he should have hidden the bottles better so that the girl would not notice them immediately upon meeting. Hyun smiled and noticed that the girl hadn't drunk the drink, so the situation seemed a little funny to him now. They started writing funny messages in the chat about how she had been caught, mentioned sobriety for 3 hours, and simultaneously had sad thoughts. The main character told the girl to try the drink, because she probably never tried such flavors here before. She stated that she had tried every alcohol in this world, and a newcomer like the hero would not surprise her taste. But Hyun still asked to try it again, hoping that the drink would make a special impression on the girl today. Taking the bottle, the heroine said that if she didn't like it, the hero would leave here immediately without any objections. She began drinking confidently, displaying a habit of drinking and a calmness that surprised those watching her. Suddenly her eyes widened and sparkled, showing that the taste of the drink was unexpectedly pleasant and strong for her. Magic began to swirl around the heroine, reacting to her state, and the atmosphere began to seem almost magical to the audience today. In the chat, they wrote that she holds the bottle with both hands when she drinks, called it cute, and asked her to take the drink away. The protagonist just grinned, watching her reaction, and realized that the plan was gradually starting to work as intended. Then she asked if there was another drink, and her gaze betrayed a growing interest in new tastes and sensations. After some time, there were many bottles around the girl, and this showed her serious attitude towards tasting drinks. She stated that it was a good drink, acknowledging the quality of the flavor and the effort that had gone into the recipe up front. Hyun replied that he was glad about her reaction, and that the demanding girl really liked the drink today. Even after so many bottles, she remained perfectly fine, and the hero was glad that he had prepared a lot in advance. The protagonist couldn't tell that this was a secret recipe from a tribe on the edge of the continent. He had learned of it by accident earlier. The heroine narrowed her eyes, asking what Balder had said, and tried to understand how important his opinion was to her. Hyun replied that nothing special had happened and tried to hide the true details of their conversation from the student. Throwing away the handkerchief, the girl told the hero to come back, because she could not give him anything at all now. The protagonist said that it meant there was something she could give, but no one could achieve. The girl replied that the hero was insightful and admitted that he had correctly understood the hidden meaning of her words today. The wind swordsman had many students, but no one could fully embody her sword, not even the talented Balder. The heroine continued that the talent required for her sword was difficult, and so she quietly disappeared when she was tired. Simply being able to wield a blade well was not enough. It required a special quality of soul, one that was completely connected to the spirits and their world. Hyun said he meant connecting with the spirits and confirmed the importance of this path for a wind swordsman. He understood that talent was important, but after many runs, he realized that it was not enough to be completely successful. Spirits were not subject to talent. It was necessary to gradually build a connection and accumulate familiarity with them over the years. In order to begin communicating with spirits as early as possible, meeting Asla became a necessary stage of the hero's journey. The girl admitted that she learned through spirits how the hero passed the test and had closely observed his progress earlier. She noted the hero's dexterous movements and flexible thinking, and said that his fencing was also at its best now. But the heroine said that this was all he was capable of and told him to return without further attempts. Yeonwoo hesitated and asked Hyun if the plan would work, his voice betraying the anxiety and uncertainty inside him now. But suddenly an assignment came, and the friend screamed in surprise, calling it madness and a secret test for everyone. Then a donation came in. The user donated 2,001, and the heroes decided that this was a strange bug in the system today. Asli's skill is important, but this is what the protagonist really wanted, to discover the path to communication with spirits. Yeonwoo was surprised, thinking that Hyun had chosen the third option, which seemed to him the most difficult of those currently offered. And then Yeonwoo tiredly said that he gave up trying to understand Hyun, but his thoughts were getting confused and melting inside. The protagonist calmly replied that Hyun never tried to think seriously anyway, analyzing what was happening around him carefully. And then the protagonist felt that it was there, the presence of spirit nearby, quiet, but clearly noticeable to him. The 55 playthrough recorder has been activated. The accumulated experience of the recorder is finally unlocked. Hyun clenched his fist joyfully, realizing that it had worked, and that it was now easier to get closer to people, establishing trusting connections for communication. But even if Hyun becomes closer to them, it is impossible to understand how strongly the spirit actually perceives this connection. The main character reflects on how spirits are implemented in the game, and the method of communicating with them is the same as before. The protagonist has no choice but to try, so he decides to act cautiously but decisively alone. A notification has arrived. The wind spirit Sylph feels a strong curiosity towards the hero. His interest is growing. The atmosphere around him is gradually changing. The chat started asking if the message from the spirit had surfaced. The black dragon muttered the words that create the legendary creature today. Many people write that they don't believe it, seeing it in person, and it's better not to interfere in the affairs of the black dragon anymore now. Hyun thought he couldn't see the spirit, but he could clearly feel his fingertips touching the invisible wind next to him. He smiled warmly, feeling supported, as if the spirit of the wind was responding to his inner call and trusting the hero completely. And then the main character said that he just needs to prove his connection with the spirits. It's really important. The girl said irritably that it was not as easy as it seemed. It required patience, effort, and a deep understanding of the process. The system reports the detection of a spirit, registering its presence near the hero, opening a new stage of interaction for everyone. The protagonist began to summon magic, concentrated, and allowed the wind energy to gather around, forming a steady flow of force for contact. The protagonist felt that he had caught the right state. Here it is, this feeling of connection with the spirit of the wind inside the heart. He began to extend his hand towards the spirit, and small hands appeared there, carefully touching his palm, as if greeting friendship. Wind and magic flew towards the guy. Streams of energy swirled around him, creating the feeling of a dance of the elements around him. And then there was a radiance and shine. The space was illuminated. The spirit of the wind showed a joyful presence next to the main character. The wind spirit Sylph responds to the hero's call, gently approaching, accepting the invitation to further communication through magical contact. Sylph smiles as if she finds it amusing, watching the hero, feeling interest in his unusual actions and decisions. The girl continued to watch, carefully following every movement, assessing the hero's connection with the spirit of the wind and his progress. Sylph is amazed by the strength of the connection demonstrated by the protagonist and feels an unusual harmony that creates trust between them and the world. The wind spirit Sylph wants to be by the hero's side, to share the path, to help in future trials and battles together. Magic appeared in the boy's hands. The energy of the wind intertwined, forming a glowing pattern, symbolizing new strength for his path. He began to create something with his hands, forming a stable form from magic, similar to the small wind spirit nearby. And then a chick appeared, sat on the hero's shoulder, became a symbol of connection with the spirits and the wind, and was forever fixed there. The Spirit Friend title has been added to the list, increasing the effectiveness of all spiritual power-based skills by 20%. And after all this, Hyun asked the girl if she would teach him fencing. Now the hero is ready to study hard. She just laughed and said that since such was the will of the spirit, she had no choice but to train this hero. She took out a book and said that from that moment on, the main character became her student in the art of fencing. The secret mission to convince Asley is complete. The system records success, and new rewards and future opportunities open up for the hero. The system reports that the hero has received 100,000 gold, Asley's secret manual, and 10 attribute points as a reward. A choice appeared to use the secret manual. If you agree, the basic swordsmanship skill was removed. And Hyun replied that of course he agreed, accepted the changes, and believed in the power of the wind and sword art for development. The system confirms that the skills will be removed, the basic sword skill of the unique rank will disappear, and the swiftness will also disappear. Yan Wu screamed with delight, saying that it was simply incredible to see such changes in his friend right now. And the protagonist decided that he would start with the movement of the wind, focusing on a new epic sword art for training. Then he looked at the chick on his shoulder and mentally said that he hoped for the support and loyalty of his little friend. The stiffness from the equipment has noticeably decreased, movements have become freer. This is definitely a different level of body control for future fights. He asked the others to step back, to free up space so he could train in peace, testing out new skills and the possibilities of his fighting style. The protagonist wondered how powerful this fencing would be, and decided to test the technique in a real fight very soon. The protagonist sighed, collecting his thoughts, preparing for the first swing, feeling responsible for the strength of the wind and the new path. And then he took a swing. The chat was surprised. They discussed the wind scar, considered what was happening crazy, laughed very loudly. As expected, this is a completely different level compared to normal fencing. The technique looks powerful and graceful. Yan Wu shouted loudly, saying that the active had just been used. The power was similar to at least the 4th rank now. He asked if the spirit's skills consumed mana, hoping that using the wind's power would always remain free for him. Hyun replied that it was not indefinite, and that outside of spirit-filled areas, preparation and careful handling of this power was required. The girl calmly said that Hyun had quickly settled in, and added that the last remark concerned his character and behavior. It seems that Edlin harbors a sinister energy that can harm the spirit, and now caution is required around him, especially when the hero is nearby. The protagonist said he agreed, asked not to worry, and promised to act carefully and protect the spirit in any situation. The donation came, there was a click, Pinari Zunli Horoquin donated, and the audience discussed the sudden wave of support. Hyun thought about it, took it as a hint since the skill was hidden, he was wondering what to do with it next. They started receiving a lot of donations, and the main character began to wonder whether it was worth dragging out the time a little longer. Suddenly, my friend froze, asked me to wait, and called what was happening truly avant-garde, not believing his own luck or the reaction of the spectators around him. A greeting sounded. PowerBridge donated 2 million won, and a representative announced their desire to purchase information about a hidden skill. Yan Wu was beaming, saying that they were now rich and was delighted with their unexpected success and the support of the viewers on the stream. The protagonist smiled and suggested that they first get out of here, resolve current matters, and only then discuss money and proposals. Those guys from Raston are still falling. They even hire people to push others during the tests. Everyone thought there was a way to find out who they really were, and discussed possible methods of checking identity and intentions. And the main character understood that there were 2 main reasons why he showed off the skill on stream today. First, to lay the foundation for future streams by attracting viewers. Second, to test the monetization of success and the consequences of decisions. Since everyone was so interested, the main character decided to reveal information about this hidden skill for free to the audience. And then he put his hand on his friend's shoulder and said that for official matters, he should contact manager Lofer. The protagonist asked for completed proposals and promised that the team would carefully consider each one after the end of the stream. Hyun said that depending on the content, they are ready to discuss and will post information about the hidden skill on the forum. And the friend was surprised and noted that if Hyun told everything, someone would try to monopolize it for their own interests. But after stroking the bird, the main character said that this would not happen and asked Sylph if the spirit agreed with him. Yan Wu warned against being so confident, recalling the incident with the slime control in Raston earlier. Hyun replied that Asla would not just sit idly by and asked Balder where she got such a character. The protagonist added that he would start by saying that even the spirits would turn away from him if he chose the easy way. Spirits hate easy paths. Before spirits there is no lie or injustice, only honest decisions and actions of people. In this world, they say that recklessness in the face of spirits comes at a high price, leaving deep wounds in the fate of every hero. The protagonist said that it was time to return to Edlin, finish his business, and meet with those who were waiting for his return. A shout could be heard from the building. Someone was indignant, saying that this was called a report, expressing dissatisfaction with the work and the results. The man asked whether the employee felt sorry for the company or was protesting because he had to go without sleep for several nights in a row. He continued, saying that there was no point in sitting up all night if the employee couldn't even earn his full salary. The man called out to another man, said, Sorry, that's all he can say, and reminded him of the company's current losses. 4 years ago, the guy bowed, introduced himself, and said that he was Kim Jae-ha, a new employee, and was glad to meet everyone. Kim Jae-ha got a job at a small trading company and joined the team 2 years after the project's launch. The man told him that since Jae-ha had volunteered, he would have to work hard and take responsibility for the results of the work. Because the team performed better than expected, they were able to make a profit in various ways in the gaming market. The manager happily exclaimed that this was a jackpot. Even if they just sold the information, the company would make a huge profit from the deal. The employee ran happily, shouting to the manager that he had found a hidden quest, hoping for recognition and a reward from the company's management. The man asked in surprise if this was true, then smiled when he saw that the reward represented a unique skill for their team. The guy replied that yes, but there is no guarantee that they will be able to get it. The return may be relatively low. He added that, compared to investing, it might be better to sell the information to another company, avoiding risks and losses. The manager chuckled slyly and told Jae-hee that this was their chance to become pioneers and get ahead of their competitors in the gaming market. Up until this point, everything had been going well, but the man wondered why things weren't moving forward any further. Luck did not smile upon them twice. The searches within the hidden quest failed time after time without any visible results. Eventually, other companies entered the competition, increasing the pressure and making it more difficult to find a solution to the problem. Under pressure from the human resources and capital of large corporations, they began to lag behind, losing their market position and influence. The boss told everyone to stop, said that 3 months of digging was enough. It was time to end the fruitless attempts on this quest, and he barked for everyone to come to his office and get ready for a serious conversation about the results of their work. He yelled, called employees bastards, asked if they knew how much all their failures cost the company. The manager replied that he should have stopped Jack's boss because he was too confident in his own decisions. The manager saw the betrayal and believed that the employee had let him and the director down, who had always trusted the responsible employee. The guy blamed himself countless times for the mistakes that continued to haunt him in his daily work. The man noticed the employee's absent-mindedness and believed that he was daydreaming in front of his superiors, losing concentration. The man then raised an eyebrow, suspecting that the employee had been communicating with the mysterious black dragon without permission. The employee acknowledged the difficulty of the situation and said he had found several ways to communicate, including donations on streams. The manager considered the idea of donations pointless and believed that spending company funds for the sake of communication was completely unacceptable. The guy awkwardly tried to explain his actions, feeling growing tension and misunderstanding from his strict boss. Suddenly, the tablet was snatched from his hands, causing the boy to flinch and lose confidence in what was happening around him. The manager was outraged that the employee was willing to spend $1 million on a single donation, considering such a decision reckless. The director reminded that the company's money should not be spent thoughtlessly, as even its own funds require caution. The man adjusted his glasses with his middle finger and asked if the employee understood the situation, which was becoming increasingly serious. The manager demanded that the employee stop trying to solve problems with money and ordered him to complete the task himself. The guy, upset, admitted to understanding what was happening, feeling the pressure of responsibility and the need to correct mistakes. The manager made a remark that the guy only understands when everything is laid out for him, calling him an idiot. The boy clutched the tablet and thought about his family, convincing himself to endure difficulties for the sake of the well-being of his loved ones. Yan-woo suggested that the hero go on the main quest, believing that the current pace made it possible to begin an important adventure. The protagonist replied to his friend that he had to go to work soon, so he could not continue the game. The friend was upset, assuming that everything was over for the day, since the hero could not continue their joint activity. The guy decided to quickly distribute his stat points and then go about his business, trying not to linger. Yan-woo was surprised that Hyun didn't distribute the points at all, finding such a decision strange and impractical. The hero replied that he had simply thought for a while, trying to determine the most effective way to develop his characteristics. The sword became lighter, and the protagonist clearly felt a subtle change that increased his confidence. It used to take decades of training to reach peak fitness, but now progress was felt much faster. The protagonist thought that he could regain his former strength and restore the power he possessed in his prime. The hero assumed that he could even become stronger than before if he continued to develop in the chosen direction. At the training ground, the hero declared that the achieved result would be sufficient for further testing. Yan-woo was surprised by the distribution of the hero's characteristics, thinking that wind spirits usually put points exclusively into agility. The protagonist asked if a balanced build was really considered rare among players of this level. A friend explained that usually everyone puts points into their main skill, aiming to strengthen their key ability. Hyun hit the dummy and noticed that the increase in stats produced a subtle but noticeable change in sensation. Every time a characteristic exceeds a certain threshold, the hero's appearance also begins to change noticeably. By investing a few extra points, the appearance will change, reflecting the growth of strength and the development of the spirit. The spirit's energy reached its maximum, allowing the hero to feel a powerful flow of force that enhances his abilities. The system reported an increase in sword strike range, accuracy, and wind damage multiplier, enhancing the stats. In the chat, players were amazed by the hero's critical damage, considering his skills incredible and marveling at the strength of the newcomer. The friend was surprised by the skill's versatility, as abilities that cover all stats are usually considered weak. Hyun explained that all the stats are the minimum requirement for the spirit's interest, so the skill is not considered MBA. The hero was surprised to see only 45 attribute points, assuming that his friend had been saving them up for too long. My friend burst into tears, as he considered this situation normal and saw nothing unusual in it. The friend rolled on the ground and shouted that he started much earlier than Hyun and tried hard, but the difference was still huge. The friend considered the gap in characteristics absurd, since a difference of 9 levels shouldn't result in such a strong imbalance. One of the reasons for the difficulty of the mode was the lack of visible health for monsters, which often led to sudden death. The protagonist chuckled and decided that he simply couldn't take damage in order to avoid dangerous situations. Yeon-woo admitted that those words would have suited anyone else, but they sounded especially confident coming from Hyun. Hyun distributed the characteristics and decided to leave, and the heroes waved their hands, promising to start the main quest tomorrow. The protagonist got out of bed and realized that he needed to take a shower to relieve the fatigue after the day. It was deep night outside, and only a few windows were lit, creating a calm atmosphere. Drying his hair with a towel, Hyun admitted to feeling very tired, feeling tense after long training sessions. Suddenly his phone rang, causing the hero to become alert and be distracted from his evening thoughts. This surprised the protagonist, and he reached for the phone, trying to understand the reason for the unexpected call. He was surprised that the guy was still texting and continuing to discuss what happened in the game chat that night. Yeon-woo wrote about the total amount of donations and said that the application was undergoing maintenance and would take approximately 30 minutes. After this, Hyun casually threw the phone on the bed, deciding to temporarily forget about the correspondence and donations of today's events. He decided that he needed to go to bed if he wanted to go to work tomorrow and feel refreshed in the morning. But suddenly his eyes widened as he remembered an important task that he had not yet managed to complete before going to bed. He jumped up abruptly, realizing that he had almost forgotten an important task and was already getting ready to go to bed that evening. The protagonist knew the chat would explode tomorrow, so he decided to confirm the authenticity of the information before publishing the guide to viewers. He checked the account ID on the main device to ensure the data was correct and future transfers were secure. Hyun decided to quickly write the necessary text, finish preparing the guide, and only then calmly go to bed without unnecessary thoughts. After 10 minutes, he noticed that his thoughts were getting confused when he tried to write, so he tried to formulate them more clearly for the guide's readers. He tried to describe everything as thoroughly and accurately as possible, putting his heart and soul into every sentence and piece of advice for players. Dawn was breaking outside, soft light filtering into the room as the hero continued working on the text for the guide. The protagonist slept soundly, finally finishing his night's chores, and his breathing became even and calm after a busy day. Suddenly the phone rang, breaking the silence, and the hero sleepily wondered what was happening at such an early hour before dawn. Hyun answered the call and said that he confirmed the donation transfer, reminding him of the previously agreed upon amount for the stream. They were shouting on the line that this wasn't the most important thing, and that the post on the role-playing game and the comments from viewers today were more important. The protagonist didn't understand why his friend was panicking so much, trying to grasp the seriousness of the situation surrounding the guide and the stream. On the line, a friend said that the text resembled an entire dissertation and not a simple hint for players about the game. The friend admitted that he would reread what he had written to better understand the proposed strategy and assess its benefits for the team. He said that the issue was not in the details, but in how to generally repeat the complex sequence of actions described. The protagonist stretched and decided that the question of talent was more important, so it was not scary to share a well-thought-out strategy with other players. He believed that in RPGs there were many unknown masters outside the avant-garde, hiding their abilities from the audience. With hundreds of millions of players, the hero initially thought that many more people would be able to cope than the game developers thought. Hyun got out of bed and decided that it didn't matter how many people could handle it. The main thing was to prove the value of the information to the community. He believed that to confirm the value of the guide, there must be those who successfully passed the strategy tests. A scream came from the phone, in which a friend doubted that anyone would even be able to cope with the complex route described in the guide. The protagonist pointed out the hundreds of millions of users and decided that rumors of a fake would make him look like a fraud. A friend advised me to take my time, reminding me that it usually takes 2 or 3 weeks before I see feedback from viewers. He recommended that next time, people take into account the points they liked and write a guide based on them, focusing on the audience's reaction. A friend suggested that Hyun try streaming on his own starting today, taking advantage of the current viewer interest in his guide. He recalled the proverb about striking while the iron is hot, hinting at the importance of the moment for future success. Now viewers liked everything Hyun did, so any action he took could attract additional attention to the channel. The protagonist decided that it was better to stream himself than to pester Yeon-woo with requests for donations every time. A friend said he was counting on Hyun and was expecting him in the evening, hoping for a successful stream and new viewers. The mother was surprised and asked if her son would be late, noticing that he was already getting ready to leave the house in the morning. The boy handed the phone to his mother and said he had time, and then asked her to look up important information about the stream's income. The woman saw 20 million won and covered her mouth with her hand, considering the amount incredibly large for the son of a student streamer. She raised an eyebrow and asked if he was paid that kind of money, trying to figure out what exactly he usually got it for. The guy replied that he was selling the information as a product, insisting that it was legal, but the woman snatched the phone from his hands. She was indignant that 100,000 won was being spent like pocket money, considering such an attitude too frivolous for the family. Hyun reminded that last time, his mother was already shocked by the 3 million won and wanted to explain the earnings. Mom said that explanations were not helping because he looked suspicious and suggested that he was hiding something. The guy thought she would find out the truth anyway and admitted that he was seriously planning to start streaming in the near future. The woman was surprised by the amount of insults in the chat and asked if he was sure that such an atmosphere was normal for a streamer to work in. Then she returned the phone, but suddenly noticed something on the screen and looked warily at her son, attentively and silently. She pointed to the video and asked if the image was the face of his character in the game, comparing the features on the screen. The woman said she recognized him immediately, and the protagonist reached out to take the phone, feeling awkward in front of his mother now. The protagonist mentally cursed the goddess for making a character an exact copy of his face in the game without his permission. When his mother asked if they would ask anything at work, Hyun thought his colleagues were busy working overtime and not watching the streams. The guy waved goodbye to his mom and headed off to work, feeling responsible for new projects and future streams in his life. The main character had already arrived at the work building and was a little nervous, anticipating another busy workday ahead today. Hyun was indignant. They hired him as an intern, but all he did was clean. He already finished work again today. Suddenly someone called out to him. Someone loudly called out Black Dragon Hyun, and the hero stopped in the middle of the corridor in surprise. Sunbae came to him and calmly said that he checked just in case, as expected, Black Dragon Hyun. The main character got nervous. He thought that Sunbae found out about it because of his work on the ERP. The bot got caught today by accident. He said that he wasn't sure, he just had a strange feeling, so he checked everything personally and thoroughly now. Sunbae wearily told the hero to try to stay out of the department head's sight, especially during important inspections. He turned around and calmly added that he would go, as he was busy with work, then slowly headed towards the exit, now alone. Hyun started rummaging through his pants pocket and asked him to wait a second because he wanted to give Sunbae something important. He continued by reminding that Sunbae had asked for data on the equipment industry last time, and that was correct. And Hyun handed him a flash drive, collected the necessary data from memory, and carefully transferred everything onto it right now. The hero was amazed, because Hyun had already done everything, and there was quite a lot of data there that had been collected manually earlier. The guy understood that if he helped Lee Min-ho, then one day he would get the information he needed from the game system. He was interested in how this world was structured according to the principle of the game and what were the real intentions of the goddess behind the scenes here. The protagonist asked when Sunbae planned to analyze the data, since the next steps of their joint research depended on it. Sunbae replied that he was thinking of temporarily freezing a problematic project, which would free up time for data analysis. Hyun then suggested that if Sunbae didn't mind, he could join in and help analyze the collected materials. Time at work flew by quickly, and the main character was already home. The evening sun was slowly setting outside. He lay down on the bed and put on his helmet, quietly saying that it was time to log into the game again today. Starting today, the main character has decided to stream on his channel, constantly sharing his adventures and thoughts with viewers. Standing on the street, the guy was looking for the right start button, carefully examining the interface, and finally noticed it. There it was, glowing calmly nearby. When the butterfly-shaped camera started filming him, the guy introduced himself and said that he was the Black Dragon, who was streaming. From now on, he streams on his own, without outside help, relying entirely on his own experience and gaming intuition. He was delighted to see that there were already more than 4,000 spectators, and he felt a responsibility to such a large audience now. Hyun started replying to the chat and noticed that everyone was writing about the hint. He wouldn't mind explaining it in more detail, but he was a little cautious. He wondered if there was a voting function so that viewers could decide for themselves whether they needed a detailed hint now. When they told him that such a possibility existed, he said that it was fine, then they would decide everything through a general survey. Yan Wu appeared from behind with joyful cries. He announced to the audience that he was already here and ready to participate together. He started making cute eyes, saying that the guys were always teasing him, but that they actually loved him. When the protagonist said he didn't have time to read, his friend proudly declared that he was catching the general wave and responding to the audience. Then Hyun said that he had already launched a survey. They had been arguing before his friend arrived, and now he would announce the results of the survey. The answer without hints won, and the friend asked if Hyun could now follow the main plot calmly. Together they announced to the audience that they were now following the main plot and asked everyone to prepare for an adventure together. The heroes approached the building where the Adventurers Guild was located and stopped in front of the entrance, examining the majestic facade carefully. A friend announced that they had finally gotten around to the main plot and admitted how long he had been waiting for this important moment. He waved to the audience and said that they too were in anticipation, sharing the joy of the upcoming events together now. The protagonist asked how long it usually takes for the first episode to understand the scope of the upcoming journey within the game. Yeonwoo confidently replied that if you follow the standard path, it will take about 2 weeks to complete the story. After that, he handed the book to the guy and explained that even for the main quest, there was a separate guide called the standard one. Then Hyun thought, 2 weeks, if you follow the guide, seemed to him too long and predictable a path for progress. But the main question was whether he should follow the guide at all or look for another path on his own. Ever since Akspel, his story has taken a different path. The hero has become accustomed to deviating from standard solutions and routes. The protagonist understood that he would not be able to get ahead if he did everything the same way as the other players. With a grin, he decided he had no choice but to trust himself and follow his own path. Yeonwoo just said with a smile that he should act as the leader of the group because Hyun should play the way that is comfortable for him. He continued that his contribution wasn't that important, so he'd rather chat with the group and keep the audience's spirits up. Hyun reminded that as soon as they entered, a cutscene would start. He agreed and said that it was time to go together. The door began to open slowly, and nothing could be seen behind it due to the glow filling the space inside. There was a shift to the Tree of the Gods, the center of the Great Ocean, a giant world tree that supports the skies above the heroes inside the game. There was a single phrase written there: whoever finds the unknown creature Erfort will gain the right to know the truth. The ancestors, driven by a sense of duty, set out in search of Erfort, and this will was passed on to future generations in various forms. Hyun looked down in disappointment, said the name Erfort, and the journey to find Erfort in this world began again. But this time the hero was ready to go to the end, no matter what, keeping his determination within himself. Yeonwoo was delighted and said that the main quest was generously rewarded. 500 gold pieces were given just for talking. He suggested going to Miel first to clarify the details and get possible recommendations for the task. They said that she was rather unfriendly, so the hero was a little worried before meeting this girl. They called out to her as Madame Miel, then repeated the address Lady Miel to attract her attention. She was applying mascara to her eyelashes and, without even turning around, told them to wait, as she was busy right now. She was the same here too, which means the main character was not mistaken with the time and recognized her manner of behavior. Then she started putting on lipstick and said that she needed a little more to finish preparing for the conversation. The guy noticed the bottle and asked if this perfume was her own. The girl calmly answered in the affirmative. Then Hyun chuckled and said that compared to her style, this perfume seemed too ordinary and simple. The protagonist claimed to have a scent that would suit her perfectly, but the girl said she wouldn't fall for the trick. She continued applying powder, snorted, and said she didn't understand who they were taking her for at that moment. The protagonist brought her a firefly flower, a rare ingredient for high-end perfume that has an enchanting scent of the wind. He took out a flower and told Miel that he didn't understand cosmetics, but wanted to know her opinion about creating a perfume. The petals began to spread through the air. The aroma turned out to be quite pleasant and soft for the surrounding space. When the heroine smelled the aroma, her eyes widened, and she realized the rarity of the flower she had brought. She jumped up and expressed surprise when she recognized the firefly flower, which was considered valuable and difficult to obtain. She screamed, asking where he got this flower, and demanded that he give it to her as quickly as possible. Yeonwoo also expressed interest and said that he didn't remember such an item being described in the walkthrough guide. Last night, the system announced that the return had been cancelled due to the sylph's intervention, which explained the flower's appearance. The bird simply began to fly in an unknown direction, indicating the path that the hero needed to understand. When the bird chirped, the protagonist realized that it wanted him to follow it, following its direction. Sylph showed him the flower, and the hero understood what was going on, realizing the source of the rare ingredient. The girl barked at him not to shake the flower, as the petals might fly off and lose their value. The guy smirked and said that she should talk to him a little if she wanted to keep the flower. She threw the documents on the table and said that if even one petal fell, he would be in trouble. She began to explain that Edlin was the port city of the Kingdom of Raven, and that the search for Erfurt was the common goal of the world. Hyun replied that he knew Raven was a hardliner and strictly followed his principles. The girl continued and said that the Raven Kingdom is currently recruiting people for the Investigator Corps in conjunction with the Adventurers Guild. The Investigator Corps is an organization where the strongest from all over the world gather to find Erfurt and carry out an important mission. The protagonist asked if this meant that one had to prove one's skills to join the Investigator Corps. The girl looked at the flower with great desire and replied that as the hero's orders were completed, important representatives would notice. Her eyes were shining. She said that at that moment she should try to catch their eye or do something similar. Then she demanded a flower. The system announced Episode 1, The Secret of Edlin, Main Quest Number 1, The Beginning, Visit Miel in the Adventurers Guild. The heroine suggested that the hero could select a task on the board behind her to begin completing assignments. Hyun thought, building up a reputation through simple tasks like clearing monsters was the standard approach for newbies. The protagonist admitted that he would have done the same if he were an ordinary player, following the usual logic of the game. But the protagonist chose the most difficult task, and the heroine giggled, saying that he would not cope with such a test. She remembered how inexperienced seekers died on these quests, which made her cautious in choosing tasks. And if the newbie died because of the mission, she would feel uneasy, since the responsibility fell on her. She grabbed her face and said that if she got wrinkles from stress, it would be terrible and unpleasant. She decided to choose a task for him herself and said that to start with, he needed to take something simple, like the proposed option. Hyun started shaking the flower and said that he thought this flower had finally found an owner, but now it seemed like a pity. She screamed at him not to shake the flower, as the petals might fall off and lose their value. Hyun dodged when the girl wanted to take the flower and told her to think carefully, because a newbie would not be able to get something like that. Looking at him, she couldn't understand where the newbie could have gotten such a treasure, even though his equipment was trash. She just got indignant and said that he was probably just lucky to buy this flower from someone secondhand. When the heroine finally handed over the difficult task, the protagonist replied that now they could talk, then told her to keep the document. Accepting the flower, she said that at the slightest danger, the hero should immediately run away and not risk his life at all. The heroes waved to each other, one asked not to worry, and promised to return immediately after the task was fully completed. Yan Wu worriedly asked if Hyun had seen the guide before coming, wanting to make sure that the hero had prepared thoroughly in advance. The protagonist responded calmly, saying that Mayor Edlin's crimes needed to be uncovered and the investigation completed. A friend warned me that when I start the main quest, time passes in the real world, and delaying will completely deprive me of important events. The protagonist chose the dungeon quest for 2 reasons: to earn the guild leader's trust and to follow a unique path through the story. Yan Wu warned Hyun, saying that now was not the time to relax. The Vanguard was already far ahead in the 8th episode. But Hyun calmly stated that at this rate, they would not quickly catch up with the Vanguard, but this did not bother him much. A friend explained that the Vanguard, who had dedicated his life to this record, achieved the result only after 2 years of continuous effort. He reminded that Hyun also goes to work, is a capital city civil servant, and cannot play endlessly all the time. Episode 8 is set on the island of Faria, west of the central continent, and due to competition, there is little information available. The guy thought with a smile that he had a rough idea where the Vanguard was stuck, imagining the difficulties of continuing along this entire path. He told his friend that he wanted the first episode to end faster, so they would complete the dungeon as quickly as possible today. Suddenly, the friend became worried, addressed his father, said that they were calling him, and promised to return soon after the conversation. After the call, the friend disappeared from the game, the connection was lost, and the main character was left to continue training alone. Then the main character decided that he would go alone for now, and later invite Loafer to join him in a joint dungeon run. Lucifer donated 10,000 won and offered to close the dungeon challenge from the top 10 results of the game server ranking. True, the hero understood that such a test would last about 12 hours and would require serious concentration and gaming endurance. The protagonist replied that he agreed, he just needed to get into the top 10 and complete the mission successfully. Lucifer donated 10,000 won. The penalty for failing the mission was set. The hero accepted the challenge and moved forward. When he received 1 million in donations, Hyun said that as a penalty, he could write up the previous guide in more detail and post it later. He thought about whether he could randomly pick one person and help out a little by using the random draw feature instead of the regular voting. Viewers began actively donating, agreeing with this fine. The main character beamed, thanked everyone, and was amazed by the total amount. He replied that with such a reaction, he simply could not help but stage a prank, perceiving the support as an obligation of the audience. He stated that he was heading to the dungeon anyway, intending to complete the test and test his own capabilities to the fullest. Against the backdrop of a clear sky, Hyun greeted all the spectators, preparing to begin his journey to the entrance of the dungeon very soon. He said that if they walked a little further, they would come to the entrance of the dungeon and begin the test. As the hero approached, a large crowd of people could be seen ahead, waiting their turn to enter the dungeon here today. He was embarrassed, wondering why there were so many people, surprised by the popularity of the test and the tense atmosphere around the entrance here now. And the friend tried to push through the crowd, moving forward to get to the hero and talk about the test plans. Hyun chuckled and said that his friend was already here, noting how quickly he got to the meeting place today. Trying to catch his breath, the friend said that getting there was no problem, but wondered why the hero had taken on such a strange mission now. The protagonist was surprised and said that they just needed to get through everything quickly, not seeing any particular difficulty here. Yeonwoo replied that getting onto the leaderboard isn't easy. You need to carefully select your consumables and prepare thoroughly in advance. But Hyun seemed not to understand, repeating that they just needed to get on the leaderboard, considering the task doable. He continued, asking why his friend was so worried, and reminded him that they hadn't even tried to go through this dungeon yet. A friend said that all the top records were set at level 30, the maximum entry level. These people are constantly running speedruns. The guy giggled, clarified that they were nerds, then asked what rewards they gave for the dungeon and successfully completing it. A friend explained that the first place winner gets the entire entry fee paid out once a week, so the reward is huge. Hyun thought about it and said that it was quite good. Even in the game, extra money is never completely useless. Yeonwoo became nervous, asked Hyun to listen, and said secretly that it was not too late to make a new bet with the viewers. The protagonist confidently told the audience that the mission would not be for the top 10, but for first place, and asked them not to switch channels. People discussed it, thinking he was crazy, but they remembered rumors about a hidden class and unusual abilities. Hyun only asked his friend not to worry so much, tried to calm him down and maintain confidence before the joint test. Yeonwoo sighed and said that the trials are essentially a single-player game, so he will be cheering for the hero on the stream. The system announced that 500 gold was required to enter the dungeon. Records were updated instantly, and the entry fee was paid to first place. The guy thought about first place for a whole year, imagining how much gold he could receive for such a successful result. A friend told me how many members of the Vanguard were in the rankings. There used to be a lot. Now there are none. They are focused on the plot. One player took third place on his first try, joined the Vanguard only 6 months later, and was considered an average player. Hyun didn't understand why he went in if he wasn't aiming for the first place, and he wondered about the motivation for such an action. Yeonwoo thought about it and said that it might be ineffective. It's hard to shave even a fraction of a second off top records. The main character waved his hand, promising that since he had promised, he would simply give it his all and return soon. But his friend called out to Hyun, asking him to wait a second, trying to stop him before entering the dangerous dungeon. Yeonwoo said that since the hero decided to fight for first place, he should at least look at the guide before entering. A friend added that this was an old dungeon and there were already plenty of guides for it, and said he had just sent one. Yeonwoo said that they say that even if you successfully complete the quest, you will lose more than you gain. The Flona is considered a fake, and the quest a trap. Hyun smiled and called it a setup, but still wondered what would happen if Flona were saved and the plot changed. Yeonwoo got angry and said that the hero would most likely complete the dungeon, spending a lot of time and items, and end up first from the bottom of the ranking. The guy tried to console his friend, noting that the content for the stream would be excellent, and viewers would definitely enjoy what was happening. The hero himself thought about it, surprised that Flone was treated so dismissively. No one noticed her key role in the plot. Yeonwoo shouted that Hyun shouldn't take such a risk anyway, reminding him that they had an important mission at stake. The protagonist said a short phrase, said that he understood, and asked his friend to simply watch carefully what happened next. Yeonwoo continued to shout, saying that he would cheer for the hero on the stream and support him during the test. The host named the Black Dragon, called him forward, and encouraged the hero before the start of a difficult run through the dungeon. The system announced that the entry fee, 500 gold, had been charged, thus officially launching the test. The system reported a dungeon challenge, indicated the Black Dragon player. The timer started. Hyun ran and summoned Sylph. A bird appeared on his shoulder, and the hero said that he had hopes for it, trusting in the power of the spirit of the wind. The system announced that the spirit was showing a strong will, the wind's movement was intensified, and the hero's physical abilities were significantly enhanced. Yeonwoo commented, saying that the Black Dragon player, using the power of Sylph, was rapidly rushing forward through the corridors. The presenter noted that the Black Dragon player easily deflected the arrow, demonstrating confident mastery of defensive skills. He added that at this speed, the hero could enter the top 3 if he maintains the pace until the end of the race. Hyun said decisively that they needed to speed up even more, considering the current speed insufficient for the intended purpose. They wrote in the chat that the hero was going to jump over a section with spikes. This section is quite long, and usually instant death occurs there. Spectators discussed how they usually remove the spikes and jump when there is space for a run-up. Laufer believed that the hero would turn into a hedgehog. The commentators were surprised, asking what was going on, saying that Hyun had stopped following the guide and was acting completely differently. The host explained that the hero uses Sylph's elemental skill to jump over the trap using wind pressure, a method no one had tried before. The host screamed with delight, said that it was cool, asked Hyun to continue in the same spirit and not to stop. Laufer's chat shifted from comments to support, with viewers discussing whether a top 10 finish was indeed possible. Commentators decided that the hero's actions were not so reckless, but still believed that he would not win first place. The protagonist resolutely passed the tests, overcame traps and enemies, gradually moving deeper into the dungeon. Finally, he stopped, felt that he had reached an important point on the route, and prepared to examine the surrounding area carefully. The guy quickly exhaled, recovered a little after the intense run, then focused on the next step. Hyun looked around and realized that he had come to the right place. This was where the clues and his own calculations had led him. A crying girl sat near the barrels. Her appearance immediately attracted the hero's attention and evoked sympathy for her condition. Yan Wu gasped, said that this child was Flana, and noted how small and defenseless she was in the face of danger. The chat reported that the little girl was very frightened and barefoot. Viewers called the situation cruel and offered to save her. The boy approached the girl and asked if she was okay, trying to speak softly and not frighten her even more. He introduced himself, said that he was the Black Dragon from the Adventurers Guild, and asked the girl not to be afraid of him. The little girl cried, telling that her friend was sick. She went to collect herbs for her, ran away from monsters, and got lost. The protagonist realized that Flana was so kind that she would risk herself for her friend, and decided that he could not leave her for the sake of the test. The friend was touched, said that the girl was very kind and her story was sad, and declared that they should save Flana. The main character extended his hand and said that everything would be fine, and invited Flan to get out of here with him. This offer greatly surprised the little girl. She did not expect help from an unfamiliar adventurer. Flana, shuffling her bare feet, said that the hero would help her, but she had no money at all and was worried about this. He replied that nothing was needed, called himself Leah's friend, thereby calming the girl down and strengthening her trust. The heroine beamed, said that he knew Sister Leah, was delighted, and felt that she was dealing with a reliable person. She held out the red plants, asking him to take at least these, wanting to thank the hero for his help with at least something. Flana called him Appa Black Dragon, said that 3 minutes had already passed. Laufer reminded him that they needed to move forward. Then Hyun asked Flana if he could pick her up, wanting to quickly take the girl away from the dangerous place. She didn't mind, and the protagonist immediately picked her up, preparing to continue on his way, protecting Flana from threats. Hyun warned his comrades to move forward. The hero pressed Flona closer to himself and concentrated completely on the tunnel. A crying Yan Wu quietly said to Flona, "They will definitely save her if they continue to believe and fight until the end of the journey." The protagonist understood that with Flona in his arms it would be difficult to dodge the traps set throughout the labyrinth today. He began to run faster than before. The hero felt how every second affected the fate of their group now. He decided that in this case, the hero would break through without looking back, relying only on his own inner determination. The protagonist said to Flona, now he will run even faster in order to have time to get her out of the danger of this place. He began to use the magic sword, concentrating on each swing to cut a safe path through the tunnel corridor ahead. With the help of this sword, he broke through obstacles, destroying stone ledges and protecting the girl from falling down. The girl was frightened. The passage began to collapse. Stones fell around with a roar, threatening to crush her and the hero right next to her. Suddenly, Yan Wu commented that at this rate, they could probably finish it in an hour if nothing unexpected happened next. The chat was full of discussions about who it was next to them, and viewers gradually gathered to watch the protagonist's ordeal online. A goblin appeared behind the heroes, his eyes gleaming with malice. He crept closer, choosing the moment to attack them, and he swung his heavy axe. The air around him trembled, threatening to split the stone wall next to them now. Hyun managed to react and blocked the axe. The sword blade met the blow, throwing the goblin's weapon aside to a safe distance. The guy asked the girl to close her eyes for a second, so that she wouldn't see the blood and wouldn't get even more scared now. Another goblin appeared near the heroes. Hyun, without wasting time, jumped up, preparing to deliver the decisive blow from above, and he cut off the head of one of the goblins. Blood splashed onto the stones, but the hero did not slow down his forward movement. And then he struck the second one behind him, the blade cutting through the air, leaving the enemy's body lying motionless there. Suddenly the main character looked back at the sound, heard a rustle, realizing that the danger was not yet completely over for them. Another goblin was flying towards them. His jump was swift. He was aiming straight at the girl holding onto the hero's hand. With one swing of his leg, Hyun hit the monster, causing it to lose its balance, fly back, and hit a rocky ledge hard. He screamed as he fell, his cry echoing through the tunnel, scaring the other monsters hiding in the darkness nearby. And after a sword pierced his heart, the goblin fell silent, and the main character was already looking for his next target among the enemies around. The main character did it. His movements were precise. He remained calm despite the chaos and screams around him. The donations came in. Saya Blue Marble donated a large sum. The audience was amazed, as if the hero had eyes everywhere now. There was light at the end of the tunnel. The next stage of the test was waiting ahead. The hero was preparing to face new dangers calmly there. They wrote in the chat that there was still a labyrinth ahead, and if the black dragon stayed here long, viewers would immediately give it an instant like. The protagonist told the girl to hold on tight. He would run along the wall, using every uneven surface as a possible support now. Yeonwoo was surprised. Running along the wall is difficult. The walls of the labyrinth do not count as support. He thought the hero would fall down. There was a discussion in the chat that if this worked, everyone would do it, and viewers thought that a crash would soon occur. The spectators argued. He ran along the wall in the labyrinth. How did he do it? Some demanded a report on the black dragon. A friend shouted, he stepped on the wind, not on the wall, and admitted that he would never have thought of it that way. They were discussing it in the chat. It's tough. People were surprised how they find such methods. The hero can take first place. The protagonist is lost in thought. The labyrinth has been completed. New enemies await him further. The trials become more difficult with each step forward. A level 26 goblin warrior and 2 level 25 goblin archers appeared in front of them at the same time. Before the monsters had time to react, the protagonist assessed the distance, preparing to strike before they got any closer. He decided to kill them before they got there, and concentrated on his breathing so as not to make a single mistake. The monsters began to roar, their voices echoing through the corridors, creating a tension that even the online viewers could feel now. They wrote in the chat, "Sensei, the pace is too fast. The viewers could barely follow every movement of the hero on the screen. This speed seemed insane. Some thought that the hero was under the influence of a spirit boost, watching his rapid attacks now. The protagonist summoned a fiery explosion by concentrating his mana. The flames engulfed the space in front of him, covering several enemies there at once. An explosion immediately thundered. The stones shook, and fire illuminated the tunnel, showing the strength of the hero and the weakness of the goblins in front of them now. The goblins began to fall one after another, their bodies crumbling to the floor, unable to withstand the force of the hero's fiery blow. The audience couldn't understand why the goblins flew away so easily. The hero wasn't hit even once, and everyone laughed loudly. The system announced, Dungeon Tester Black Dragon, timer 17 minutes 30 seconds. The monsters were coming from all sides. They must have heard the explosion. Their steps echoed loudly, surrounding the hero in a tight ring. Yeonwoo was worried. 17 minutes had already passed. His heart was pounding. It seemed to him that it was becoming almost impossible to watch further. But for Hyun, this was no problem. He fought his way through the goblins, maintaining his calm and self-confidence. Finally, the last goblin boss remained, his silhouette standing out among the ruins. The hero was preparing for the decisive battle now ahead. When Flona was asked to wait here, she said, "Please be careful, adventurer. She believes in his return." The boss, a level 30 elder goblin, turned out to be a truly powerful opponent, his aura putting pressure on the heroes during the battle. The monster roared, declaring that the hero had gotten here skillfully, but the hero's path, according to the monster, should have ended here. The monster declared that no one could break through the mana shield of this body. He believed in the invincibility of his own defense completely. But Hyun immediately attacked, and the chat was shocked. Viewers wrote that he didn't even let the monster finish speaking. The protagonist laughed. The elder goblin relied too much on his shield, not knowing its vulnerability to the wind of magic. The monster roared, calling the hero a bastard, its rage only strengthening Hyun's determination to end the battle as quickly as possible here. The system announced that the first place ranking would be updated, and rewards would be distributed according to the ranking. The hero received 300,000 gold. Yeonwoo shouted joyfully, "This is just tough. They did it." He congratulated the guys, sharing his delight with the chat. Hyun, the Black Dragon, took first place in the trial dungeon. His name has been cemented at the top of the rankings forever. He was glad, about to press the mission accomplished button, feeling the tension of the battle gradually give way to satisfaction and relief. When Hyun saw the reward, he thought it was an amount he could never have imagined while working as an intern before, and his friend admired him. Hyun is a real legend. His achievements were inspiring. He said this sincerely, looking at his friend next to him. The guy turned to the girl and said that Flona could come out. The danger had passed, and he gently called her from her hiding place to come out now. The scary monsters have disappeared, so there's no need to worry, the hero reassured the girl, explaining that everything is already behind here. She saw a green wind and said it was the same wind that had accompanied them during the battle before. Suddenly, Hyun began to call upon the wind, addressing Floan, allowing her to introduce someone, preparing a small surprise now. And he called the chick. Her name is Sylph. The hero introduced the spirit, confident that the girl would find her very cute. The heroine began to stroke Sylph's cheek, saying that she was so sweet. Her smile became soft and bright now. Suddenly he remembered about the chest, noted the need to open the chest, expecting to see the contents of the long-awaited reward inside now. Suddenly, a radiance appeared. A bright light hit the eyes, forcing the hero and the audience to close their eyes for a moment from blindness. The chat was filled with reports of a blinding light appearing, and viewers were now trying to discern the source of the glow in the chest. The spectators were shocked. The golden light signified a rare reward. Some expressed a desire to close the chest back, fearing the consequences now. There were 2 precious stones in the chest. Their glow reflected on the walls, creating a mysterious atmosphere around the heroes there. One stone was the color of the sky, and the other was golden. Each seemed special, holding an ancient power within. The system reported that for completing the dungeon, the hero received an earth essence of a unique rank and a spirit stone of an ancient rank simultaneously. Yeonwoo said happily, 2 items of unique rank and above dropped at once. The content of today's broadcast is just fire. Hyun decided that the earth essence was valuable enough, but he would put it away for now, thinking about how best to use the find later. The protagonist showed the celestial stone to the audience. Everyone admired its radiance, discussing the possible abilities hidden inside this find. Then he received a donation. A bell rang. Sasko donated 1,000 won, and the spectators discussed new contenders for the dungeon now. Hyun smiled. Today was Friday. There were 3 days left until the dungeon calculation. He planned to use the time ahead as productively as possible. Suddenly, the little girl touched the boy's hand, her voice trembling. She quietly addressed the adventurer now carefully. She handed over the plant, thanked him for saving her, and asked him to accept the gift, conveying her sincere gratitude. The system reported that for completing the task, the hero received a red herb of normal rank, and experience has increased by 500 units now. The protagonist noted the need to temporarily leave here to rest and think about his next steps in a quiet place. The system announced a move to the port city of Edlin. The space trembled, the heroes felt a change of location and fresh air nearby. Yeonwoo ran towards them, shouting congratulations, saying that Hyun had really done well, earning the respect of all the viewers. He leaned over to the girl, greeted Flona, introduced himself as Loafer, and wished her a pleasant acquaintance. And then he clarified the degree of fear she had experienced. His voice sounded soft, trying to calm the girl after the ordeal. The protagonist reassured her, noting that there was no need to be shy around the heroes. It was safe for her here. He explained that those from the slums are considered lower class, so it's no wonder they feel out of place in the big city here. The heroes were already entering the guild building, their footsteps echoing along the corridor, foreshadowing a new meeting and conversations within. Shouts could be heard from the guild, someone demanding to name the reward for the request, repeating their words over and over again. The girl said that the interlocutor must name the reward for her to accept the order. She is not the head of the guild and strictly follows the rules. The guest shouted, demanding to meet with the head of the guild. She insisted on a personal conversation about her request. They told her that the headmaster wasn't available right now, but if it was urgent, she could try contacting a suitable adventurer in the city directly. She looked around, noted the reluctance to address these people. There was no act spell either, and thought about her next steps here. Then the heroine asked about the presence of other adventurers, her voice sounding cautious. She was looking for possible help nearby. And they told her that she needed to do her makeup, and even after finishing the paperwork, she shouldn't disturb the employee. The men at the table shouted, calling the nobles idiots, saying that they were behaving as if they were special, and advising them to watch their language carefully. A girl approached them and hesitantly apologized, her gaze darting around. She clearly needed help now. The men looked at her, and each thought that a slum rat stood before them, causing confusion and slight irritation. The girl said excitedly that she wanted to apply for the commission, despite her fear and inner turmoil. The man in the helmet was taken aback, because the word commission sounded unexpected and extremely strange to him in such a situation. She said that her friend had gone into the forest and disappeared, so she hoped to get help for a commission and find him alive. But suddenly, the hero clanged his beer mug, declaring that the commission was impossible, since she had no money now and nothing to pay with. Another one asked, with a smile, whether she had any collateral that could confirm the seriousness of the request and her intentions. The girl was taken aback as soon as she uttered the word guarantee, because she did not expect such a demand from strangers and was at a loss. And the guy said that if there was no collateral, then she could pay with her body, causing her horror and strong disgust. She asked if this was really all he wanted because the proposal sounded humiliating and disgusting to her. And the man slammed the knife into the table, telling her to take the item and go to the specified nobleman without asking any questions. The girl was scared, because she realized that the man was offering her to kill the nobleman, which seemed impossible and frightening. The guy chuckled, repeating the words about the nobleman as if the very thought of murder seemed funny and easy to him. He said that they would simply frighten the nobleman a little, and the punishment would be average if everything was presented as a prank and a game. She heard that they were not going to kill anyone, although the man admitted that it was none of his business or concern. The girl understood that now was not the time to worry about unnecessary thoughts, because the situation was becoming dangerous and unpredictable. She said, upset, that if she followed his instructions, he would really help her find her friend and support her. She thought only about how to save Flona, because her safety was more important than any doubts and fears at that moment. Suddenly her hand was intercepted, reminding her that she was not at all the kind of person she was trying to appear to be in her despair. The system reported that the cutscene was over, and the girl felt the tension gradually begin to subside and disappear. It was the main character. He waved his hand to the girl, showing that he arrived on time and noticed what was happening around her. And from behind Hyun, Flona ran out, shouting sister, because she was happy to see her loved one alive. A look of surprise flashed in the girl's eyes, because she did not expect to see Flona alive and unharmed after everything. And they began to hug, feeling the long-awaited relief because fears finally gave way to joy and warmth. The girl admitted that she was saved by her adventurer uncle and spoke about it with sincere gratitude and respect. The men began to get up from the table, saying they were bored and suggesting they go somewhere together for some fun. Hyun decided that, even if she was just a random character, he would no longer remain silent if this kind of behavior happened again. And he offered to go together, saying that he would walk her home so that she would feel calmer and more protected. Leah said that if Hyun needed help, he could reach out to her because she was always ready to support and listen. And then she pointed to the house, joyfully announcing that they had arrived, and called her sister to come inside without delay. She stroked Flona, saying that the main thing was that the girl got home safe and sound. The girl ran up to the guy, thanking the adventurer sincerely for today and the help he had provided. Hyun stroked her, reminding her not to make Leah worry and stress so much next time. Suddenly the girl said thank you and pursed her lips, trembling from the tension and strong emotions that overwhelmed her. Hyun was surprised because Leah had just said the word thank you, which was extremely unusual and rare for her. And the heroine screamed that she didn't care, demanding that he leave, because she was embarrassed by what was happening and didn't know how to react. The quest was completed, and the system opened a subquest, describing helping Leah, who was desperately and non-stop searching for Flona. And he decided that for now it was worth going to Loafers, because new interesting content and events might appear there. He teleported to the park, feeling lighter after completing the task and anticipating further events ahead. And coming closer to his friend, he said that he looked busy, because his attention was completely focused on work. Yeon-woo yelled that Hyun had scared him, because his friend's appearance was too sudden and loud for him. A friend said that it was all because of Hyun, because someone took first place in a funny way, causing a lot of calls and discussions. The protagonist said that Yeon-woo was probably tired from filming and answering questions, suggesting that they turn off the game and rest for a bit. Yeon-woo replied that if Hyun turned off the game now, everything might explode, as the situation was extremely unstable and tense. The protagonist didn't understand, because he had no content that he could engage with and use at the moment. And he declared that he would do this by conducting a private lesson, promised as a penalty for failing the mission and its conditions. He said he would choose from those who donated or set up rewards, thanking everyone for their support and participation. Hyun announced that they were starting a giveaway, as it was time to choose the lucky winner from among the stream participants. The host joyfully drawled, asking who would be the lucky winner, as the moment was solemn and bright. And Mr. Kim Jae-ha was announced and asked to write in the chat if he was watching the broadcast and was ready to respond. Yeon-woo stated that if the winner does not answer within 30 seconds, a redraw will be held among everyone. The guy rushed to the helmet, assuring that he was coming in right now, since it wasn't in vain that he had sacrificed the last 100,000 coins. He let out a long sigh, reminding himself that everything that was happening was a normal business process without emotions. He awkwardly greeted them, saying he was glad to meet them, and introduced himself as Kim Jae-ha from Tail Company. Hyun replied that he was also glad to meet him, specifying his origin, and the guy thanked him for the opportunity to learn. The protagonist asked if there was anything specific the student would like to learn in the lesson right now. The guy said with a smile that he didn't care, because he trusted his mentor's choice and had no doubts at all. Hyun said that he would then focus on fencing, asking if the student preferred magic as his primary fighting style. But the guy replied that he had never studied magic at all, as he had always focused on physical combat skills and training. Yeon-woo looked around and asked where they were, as the place seemed unfamiliar and a little strange to him now. And he replied that it was an ordinary store where you could find many useful items for adventures. Opening the door, the guy called out to Aksabel, hoping to attract her attention and get a quick and accurate answer. She said that she was busy to the brim, asking to speak faster since she had almost no time left today. The protagonist asked if he could come over later since the girl was so busy with things to do and important work. The girl turned around, recognizing the black dragon, and asked what brought him here at such an unexpected moment. Hyun replied that nothing special had happened, and asked if it was by chance that Leah was there right now. The girl replied that she had just arrived, as she had been busy with other important matters and tasks before, and she asked why he needed Leah, assuming that she could do something unpleasant again right now and cause problems. The protagonist asked if he could use the backyard for a while because he needed space to train. The heroine replied that it would be a bit cramped there because of the stacked boxes, but allowed her to use the space if necessary. As he left, Hyun thanked the girl for her help, showing respect and appreciation for her permission and kindness. The protagonist told the student that basic swordsmanship had already been learned and asked him to get a weapon for further practice. And he asked what level the student had, because this is important for assessing his combat capabilities at the moment and for subsequent actions. Summoning the sword, the boy replied that he had reached level 52, although he considered the result modest and not impressive enough. And after a question about the significance of the level, the student said that the indicator was too low, considering the long game and accumulated experience. The protagonist said that since he has experience playing for a long time, it's worth looking at the skills and applying the theory in real practice. The student bowed, and Hyun asked if the sword was the student's main weapon in combat at the moment and in normal situations. The guy replied that he usually uses a hammer because he likes the aesthetics of heavy and powerful weapons in combat clashes. The protagonist admitted that he chose a cramped location to minimize movement and increase the accuracy of each strike. Hyun warned the student that he was about to start training and asked him to concentrate fully for the best results. The student was worried, realizing that he needed to pull himself together because the training required maximum concentration and inner stability. But his face betrayed fear because he doubted his own strength and was afraid of making a mistake even now, despite his preparation. The protagonist placed his sword on his opponent's shoulder, saying that with such a reaction, the student would have died earlier in a real fight. He explained that movements are adjusted to the player's characteristics, and future opponents will be faster and much more dangerous. The student said that he understood the instructor's explanation and suggested trying again to consolidate his skills and increase his confidence. The hero stated that he would start with a downward right strike to test the student's reaction speed and defensive ability. The guy had a hard time blocking the blows, as the technique was difficult for him and required a lot of effort and constant control. Hyun looked back, noticing that she had arrived later than he expected, which surprised him a little in that calm moment and made him think. Luckily, she noticed them first, which avoided an awkward situation and unnecessary explanations later. In order to change the course of the episode, Hyun decided to attract Leah's attention, as her participation was important and necessary now for the development of the scene. The student had difficulty dodging the blows as the speed of the attacks increased with each movement and required maximum concentration. He seemed to be afraid of the sword because the weapon seemed too dangerous and unpredictable to him in the confined space. 50 minutes later, the sword fell to the ground, indicating that the student's strength was completely exhausted at this point and required rest. And the opponent raised his hands, showing that he was surrendering because he could no longer continue the fight at that moment due to fatigue. The hero gritted his teeth, saying that he couldn't even block the first attack against the newbie at that moment, which made him very upset. Hyun asked in surprise what had happened because the student looked much weaker than he expected to see and evaluate at that moment. He suggested wrapping it up since there were only 10 minutes left and it was pointless to continue in the student's condition. The guy's hand was shaking because he understood that the golden hour could end in vain without results or tangible benefits. The student asked if he could try using a hammer, as a familiar weapon would give him more confidence and stability in his movements. The protagonist replied that the hammer was suitable and suggested trying it out to assess the student's actual skills and potential. The student thanked Hyun for his patience, as the mentor showed understanding and willingness to continue teaching even now. The student asked if the hero could conduct the rear as a real fight, wanting to test himself in a full-fledged duel. Hyun agreed and said that they would spend the remaining time as a real fight without any unnecessary doubts. Yanwoo explained that regular rear has penalties, so it is carried out in duel mode by mutual consent. The student said that he would then submit a request for a duel, wanting to start a fair and equal confrontation. The system notified that Kim Jae-ha had sent a request for a duel, suggesting that the hero accept his offer calmly. The protagonist said to attack without hesitation, allowing the student to show his strength and test his own capabilities. The boy frowned and asked for forgiveness, intending to show his determination to the hero in the upcoming fight. He suddenly took off from the ground, demonstrating his desire to attack the hero and prove his own combat training. He jumped up, swinging his heavy hammer, hoping to land a strong blow on the protagonist. Hyun stepped aside and a powerful blow landed on the ground, showing the slowness of the enemy's attack. The protagonist put his sword to the enemy's neck and said that the hammers were strong, but too slow for an accurate strike. The guy shouted that he would prove everything in his own way, trying to overcome his own weaknesses and show a worthy result. He grabbed the hammer handle again, preparing to continue the fight and try to change the outcome of the duel. He began to swing, but Hyun dodged, demonstrating superior speed and precision of movement. The guy thought that he would definitely hit it at least once, trying not to lose confidence in himself. He screamed at the top of his lungs, trying to gather his remaining energy and deliver a more decisive blow to the hero. And again, he jumped up, hoping to change tactics and achieve at least one successful hit on the enemy. He decided that since his attacks were slow, he would try to strike wide, using the area of effect. The hero swung even faster, demonstrating superior technique and confidence in his own actions. He used an earth strike, hoping to cover the hero with a powerful wave and change the course of the fight. But the protagonist placed the sword on the guy's shoulder and said that Kim Jae-ha's time was up in this fight. Hyun asked if fighting was against the student's inclinations, wanting to understand his true preferences in rear. The student was upset and said that even if he had hit the target, the outcome would still have remained the same for him. The protagonist smiled and said that there are many paths to RIR other than fighting, suggesting that they try another path. The student replied that his class was originally a blacksmith, so combat did not always reflect his true abilities. Chat was outraged to learn that he was a blacksmith and said that the guy could have told him about his craft right away. The protagonist sighed and said that the student was a first-generation player, so he put a little force into the blow. The guy admitted that he thought he could handle it, since his level was much higher, but the black dragon was indeed stronger. A passing speedway racer donated 1,000 won, reporting the Taiyuel Corporation's failure to find dwarven metallurgy. Yeonwoo stated that he now remembered dwarven metallurgy since the community was actively discussing this topic back then. He said they found a related achievement, but the quest itself was never discovered by any players. The protagonist asked if Kim Jae-ha had ever been involved in searching for dwarven metallurgy, wanting to know the details of his experience. The guy replied that he was the one who discovered it first, although now he considers all of this to be in the past and insignificant. He said that the conditions for obtaining dwarven metallurgy are very strict, which fully corresponds to its high value. Hyun smiled and said that he couldn't miss such an opportunity because rare knowledge is always important. Kim Jae-ha said in surprise that the hero sent a friend request and did not expect such a decision from him. He said that of course he agreed and accepted the offer, delighted by the unexpected attention from the hero. The guy beamed and said it was crazy because the friend request was a real gift for him. Hyun thought for a moment and wondered how Leah was doing, recalling the girl's recent events and experiences. The girl barked that the black dragon was dangerous and reminded the hero to be careful as she had warned him in advance. Hyun replied that he was sorry because the guy said he would make it up to him, so he didn't want to worry about it anymore. The system announced that Morning Dew was a tavern in the Edlin Trade District, suggesting a visit. The guys discussed being there for the first time after 2 years of absence, recalling previous events and old impressions. The protagonist noticed that they seemed to have accumulated a lot of complaints and decided to listen carefully to their opinions. He asked what he should call the student, since Kim Jae-ha seemed to be his real name without any hidden details. The hero replied that he was used to his real name since he was part of the company, so he wasn't worried about it. He said that he suddenly became this psycho who plays with his real face, not hiding his own identity. The student began to explain that what he had first found was not an achievement, but merely an object with a similar description. He said the item had the same words written on it as the achievement description, creating confusion among players. Hyun asked if the student had the item now, wanting to see it and learn more about the find. And the guy began to look for something in the inside pocket of his sweater, hoping to find the right object among the folds of fabric there. He showed the silver pendant, holding it carefully in his palm, as if he was afraid to drop the precious artifact at this important moment. The protagonist thought with a slight smile that it was hard to believe that he was seeing this rare item right here. The protagonist calmly asked if he could touch the pendant, showing caution, respect, and interest in the strange artifact now. And he handed over the artifact, saying that he, of course, allowed the touch, trusting the hero and having no doubts about his intentions. The protagonist felt a familiar surface and saw a clearly remembered coat of arms, realizing that the object was connected with dwarven metallurgy. The boy admitted that he found the pendant halfway up the snowy mountains in the far north of Ifrit while searching. Hyun realized that they were talking about a place where there were many ore veins and enough entrances to old mines. The student was surprised and asked how the hero knew such details, since low-level people usually don't go there. Yanwu proudly said that Black Dragon Hun was a true expert and had almost memorized the entire thick guidebook. The guy continued his story, saying that not only their company, but also many other corporations went all out there. He added that there were no results, as no one else was able to find this mysterious object. The protagonist became thoughtful, believing that dwarven metallurgy only goes to the one who discovers it first, so the others lost the search. And Hyun suggested that they form a party for a while to study the discovery together and test the theories associated with it. The guy's mouth dropped open in surprise, not expecting to hear such a serious offer of collaboration from the hero now. He replied that he would be extremely happy to join the hero and help in any research of the found artifact later. He shouted that he would try his best to be at least a little useful and never let down the hero who trusted him. He was asked if he had completed Edlin's episode, and he replied that the main quest had been completed a long time ago, so he would not be able to join. The heroes bowed to each other, expressing gratitude and impatience for the joint work that was to begin very soon later. Throwing the bracelets off his hands, the guy said loudly that what was happening seemed like sheer madness to him, and an incredible turn of fate right now. He bit the blanket with his teeth, trying to make sure that everything that was happening was not a dream, but a real reality for him. He thought that at this rate, he could be promoted if luck continued to favor him, and his efforts did not prove in vain later. The bus slowly pulled up to the stop, slowing down and preparing to open its doors for the waiting passengers at this moment in the morning. And the hero slowly entered it, intending to continue his journey and think over the upcoming affairs in the calm atmosphere inside. He thought that leaving the house on a weekend morning made him feel like he was going to work again today. He reflected that he had come to hate the company in just a couple of days and seemed to have become seriously addicted to the game only recently. The people up ahead were discussing the test dungeon, saying they had watched it live and were amazed by what they saw there. They claimed that the Black Dragon was a complete psychopath who committed dangerous acts for the sake of spectacle and glory in the game. The hero glanced at his phone and saw 50,000 applicants, surprised by the reward amount, which reached at least 25 million gold. He thought that with that kind of money, the one who lost first place might become hostile, but nothing could be done at all. The guy pressed the stop button, ending the trip and preparing to get off at the right stop for further business today. After getting off the bus, he said that the place was not as far away as he had previously thought in his head. He looked around, trying to find the Gyumsong Villa, and from the map he realized that it should be somewhere nearby now. He sighed and decided to go inside to try to unlock the secrets of the mechanism and understand its structure fully today. The guy stood by the door for a while, collecting his thoughts and deciding how best to start a conversation with the owner. And then he pressed the doorbell, waiting for an answer and listening to the sounds inside the house in the silence. But he couldn't understand whether the button was broken, because the sound seemed strange and a little muffled to him now. He decided that perhaps he should knock to get attention and make sure that there was indeed someone inside. A guy's eye appeared from the crack in the door, and he said that the hero had come early that day. The hero was taken aback and calmly said his greeting, trying not to show surprise and maintain a polite tone of conversation here now. The pale guy asked the hero to go inside, suggesting not to linger in the corridor and to go straight into the room. The guy apologized for his appearance, explaining that he had come across something that had made his head spin this morning. He apologized for the cramped conditions, saying that it was simply impossible to move all the equipment outside due to its complexity and weight. The guy explained that all the parts were obtained by disassembling level 1 equipment and that the technology was significantly ahead of its time. He said that he was particularly worried about this chip, which was haunting him and constantly raising internal questions. He explained that there was a strange pattern inside the chip, but he couldn't remove it, suggesting that the hero take a closer look. The hero leaned closer to the magnifying glass to examine the details and understand what exactly was bothering the guy so much inside. He saw that in the center there was a golden circle shining with a soft light and constantly attracting attention to itself. A golden halo shone around the circle, creating an unusual effect and emphasizing the importance of this design element for the boy's research. And if you zoom in a little closer, strange patterns become visible around it, reminiscent of ancient symbols and runes of the gnomes. Then, the hero asked if there was anything else unusual because he was interested in every strange event around the current world. The pale guy replied that the program they gave him in the department surprised him a little with its strange content. The basis for this program was provided by the gaming company RP, and the guy began to wonder about its hidden intentions. The guy snorted, saying that it felt like they themselves wanted employees to dig into the company's corporate secrets. But the key thing was that the code analysis was based on the data they had collected earlier. Yes, the same pattern was repeated throughout the code, which was not found in the data from other departments. The hero did not understand, because the strange language of that world seemed mysterious to him, and he was surprised at their courage to do such a thing. Then the hero said that there was a method of creating a fantasy language from his favorite writer, and the patterns resembled this method. It also resembled cryptography, so the hero believed that if used correctly, they would be able to decipher the found data. The word Edlin was written there, and the hero thought about its possible hidden meaning within the strange text. Hyun waved his hand to greet everyone, as he had arrived early today and wanted to interact with the audience. It was Saturday, so he planned to stream a little longer, enjoying the opportunity to spend time with his audience. He was surprised that so many people had come without an announcement, and he thanked the audience for stopping by. The friend waved at him, showing his joy at seeing him, as he had long wanted to support Hyun. The protagonist said that he was surprised at how his friend rushed over immediately, even though he was busy with important matters. Yanwoo was touched because today they had 30,000 viewers online, and he sincerely thanked everyone present. The friend began to cry, remembering how just yesterday he was carrying Hyun on his back, and today they already had 30,000 spectators. The main character gave a thumbs up, expressing a huge thank you to all the viewers who came to see them again today. Leah ran towards them screaming about a black dragon, clearly alarmed by the events happening around the group. He thought that he hadn't even really received the award yet, and the girl was probably embarrassed to run into him. The girl blushed and asked the hero to go with her for a minute, clearly embarrassed by the situation. Hyun was surprised because she called him right now, although he considered himself busy with important matters. The heroine yelled that he was not busy with anything right now and demanded that he immediately follow her without further ado. She grabbed his sleeve, telling him to stop chatting and just follow her without asking any unnecessary questions. People in the chat started writing that Leah had a strong character, and viewers were happy that she was behaving naturally. And the main character had to follow her because she was not going to let him go and continued to pull him forward. He asked if the girl would keep it up, and the heroine became indignant, and Hyun laughed, talking about her words. But she didn't answer. She just continued to walk forward, completely focused on her goal. They said in the chat that Leah was serious, and the viewers laughed because she often shut up those who interfered. The girl continued to tug at the guy's sleeve, ignoring his attempts to slow down. They approached the familiar door again, and the heroes felt a slight tension from the upcoming conversation. Leah knocked, saying she had brought him, hoping to get an answer from whoever was supposed to be inside. But there was no answer, and there was silence in the room, causing the heroes to have disturbing thoughts. The girl began to knock nervously, calling for Flona and demanding that she open the door because the situation seemed strange to her. She became even more frightened because the door was open, and this increased her anxiety for her friend. But Flona wasn't there, which made the heroine think about the possible troubles that had happened to her friend. The heroine was shaking all over because she had definitely been preparing food for them, and her sudden disappearance seemed suspicious. She screamed about the kidnapping, sure that something terrible had happened, and demanded that her friend be found immediately. She didn't understand who needed Flona at all, since her friend rarely attracted the attention of strangers. The protagonist noted that if she had really been kidnapped, there would have been a lot more chaos here. Leah screamed about the black dragon, saying that Flona was missing and demanding that they look for her quickly before it was too late. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps and a cat was heard, which made the heroes become wary and look around. The heroes looked around sharply, trying to understand the source of the sound, because it could lead them to an important clue. Leah ran out quickly, hoping to catch up with the source of the noise and find out what happened to her friend. She shouted that her sister had promised to cook and asked where she had disappeared to, as she was very worried. The hero asked what happened to Ruby because he knew that this cat was important to the little girl, Flona. Ruby was the cat Flona was raising, and her disappearance seemed even more alarming to everyone. The girl showed that Ruby had run off in that direction, and the heroes realized that they needed to check the route immediately. Running in that direction, the heroine shouted for the black dragon to look after Flona while they looked for her, and the guy stroked the girl's head, saying that everything would be fine, and trying to calm her down a little. And the main character asked the girl not to worry about her so much, because he wanted to calm her feelings a little. The little girl began to cry because the anxiety for her friend was growing stronger, and she could not contain her emotions. She couldn't calm down, and the tears kept coming, because fear for Flona completely took over her thoughts. The protagonist understood that in such a state, no matter how he consoled her, everything would be useless and would only make the situation worse. He called Sylph, hoping that the spirit's appearance would be able to support the girl a little and restore her confidence. And a little bird appeared in front of them, quietly circling in the air and trying to attract the attention of the upset little girl. Hyun admitted that Sylph was saying that if the girl was that sad, Ruby would be too ashamed to come back. She began to stroke the bird, thanked it for its words, and promised to wait bravely, despite her great anxiety. The protagonist suggested that Flone first go home and wait a little to calm down and collect her thoughts. The heroine asked the adventurer if it was true that Ruby would definitely return safe and sound, because she was very worried. Hyun asked if he could go look for her with Leah, since finding things had always been his specialty. He recalled that the last time Leah ran away, he found her right away, without wasting time or hesitating. She asked the adventurer to look for Ruby too, because she was very worried and did not want to be left without action. The girl screamed for Ruby, hoping to hear some kind of response and figure out where the cat might be. Suddenly she heard a man's voice and got scared because she didn't expect to hear anyone in this place. She jumped up in fear because the voice sounded unexpectedly and made her shudder violently. And she screamed, asking what he was doing there because she thought he had left Flona alone in a dangerous situation. Hyun responded calmly, saying that Sylph was looking after Flona, so she shouldn't worry too much. Leah waved them off, declaring that she could handle it herself, and asked Hyun to return to Flone without further ado. She told him to stop clinging and just go, because she knew Ruby much better than him and confidently understood her habits. And the main character said that he knew where she went, because he noticed the direction in which the little cat disappeared. Hyun admitted that he saw her enter the underground aqueduct and was confident that his observations were correct. Leah became angry, asking why he was only telling her this now, since the information was extremely important. The guy chuckled, reminding her that she hadn't asked, and suggested that everyone follow her to find the cat faster. And a green wind began to appear around his boot, lifting him up and helping him move faster than the others. And Yeonwoo ran along the ground behind him, asking him to wait for him because he couldn't move as fast as Hyun. The friend held back the urge to gag, complaining that they had deliberately added an unpleasant smell to increase the discomfort. Yeonwoo was surprised, asking Hyun if he was sure he saw her here, since the place seemed inappropriate for a cat. Hyun chuckled, saying that he just wanted to leave because of the stench, because the smell was indeed very unpleasant. The friend admitted that this was true, but noted that people generally don't come here themselves, avoiding such places. A donation came from Mr. Info, who donated 5,000 BOH, telling about the underground aqueduct and its architect. Suddenly, a smile appeared on the guy's face, because the donation contained useful information that could help in the search. Leah stood ahead, watching them carefully and waiting for them to catch up with her and continue their search. He asked what she was doing and if she had found Ruby, hoping to get at least some new information. The heroine handed over the bandage, saying that Ruby's tracks ended right here, and asked to examine the surroundings more carefully. But the main character stopped her because he noticed something important and wanted to draw Leah's attention to this place. And he asked to look up, suggesting that the cat might have chosen an unusual path and climbed higher. Seeing the round hole in the wall, Leah said she didn't want to believe that Ruby had climbed in there alone. She said they didn't even know where this was leading, which made the situation even more alarming. The protagonist ordered both of them to step back for a minute, as he was going to check the hole with magic. A glow appeared on his hand, gradually intensifying and preparing to release a powerful stream of fiery energy. And he shouted a fiery blast, calling for flames to clear the way and widen the inspection hole. And an explosion thundered, illuminating the space with a bright light and causing the air to tremble from the force of the magical blow. He calmly blew on his finger, extinguishing the remaining flame, showing confidence and control over the magic. The girl screamed, saying that he was crazy because this was a public area and he could be punished for something like this. Hyun chuckled, saying that as long as they were here, no one would know, and asked them not to tell anyone the truth. He suggested finding Ruby quickly first, since searching for the cat was more important than any conversations and worries. Yeonwoo exclaimed that the Black Dragon Hyun had found a hidden passage, even though he had done so by breaking everything around him. Leah slowly began to walk towards them, carefully watching the passage and preparing to continue searching for the cat. Suddenly, the pendant on her neck began to shine with a bright light, attracting everyone's attention and hinting at an important clue.